Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And BlueDragonFive.
And 10 summers ago, a little movie called The Dark Knight premiered in July.
Little independent film. You may or may not have heard about it.
Yeah, in July of 2008. And to celebrate the 10 years since that iconic film, we're going to tackle not just that film, folks, but the entire Christopher Nolan Dark Knight saga, starting with Batman Begins.
Oh, yeah.
Man, oh man. Okay, Dragon, we are on a roll here because this is going to be a lot of bucket list podcast for us.
Yeah, I know.
So basically, what we have here, folks, just to get the just to get the ball rolling. Dragon, I'm not sure if you and I agree on this, but I think that Batman Begins, like Dark Knight, is obviously the most memorable and the biggest landmark in the saga. Batman Begins, I think, is inherently the best film.
You mean out of the trilogy?
Out of the trilogy, yeah.
You know, it's interesting, Tiki. I really, Batman Begins. I think there's absolutely an argument to be made out of the trilogy between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. But again, on the whole, by the way, let's kind of take these. Let's kind of take these as they come. We'll kind of build momentum in comparing the trilogy. Let's kind of focus on them as is, and we just kind of build some momentum. It's kind of a little ground rule for these commentaries.
Well, just to tease the folks, though, just really quick.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises, folks. That's going to be a fun one. That's one that I've talked about doing for a long time.
Exactly, but as a rule of thumb, like we'll build momentum as we'll look back, or like if we're going to mention the trilogy, we'll mention kind of the beginning of the before the commentary and after the commentary until we get to like the point where we have all the three films before us under our belts going through here, right?
All right.
Right. But yeah, the point is very briefly. Yes, there's an argument to be made between the two of them, but I feel in re-exploring the films, Tiki, and doing research and stuff, I would say I think each of them are very distinctly different films. Not only for Nolan, but as Batman films, and I would say, as like a one sentence thesis statement, that Batman Begins is it's a Christopher Nolan movie about Batman, and I think that's really interesting.
It's a good way to put it, and to me, that might be why it stands out to me the most out of the three of them. Is that it's the most standalone.
Yeah, and again, like those qualities make it for a very interesting debate between the films. And I absolutely understand anyone who says Batman Begins is the best out of the trilogy. I absolutely get where they're coming.
Dark Knight when we get to it. I think the Dark Knight is anchored by one incredibly iconic performance, obviously, which no one can take away from it.
And of course, other various
storytelling issues with the Dark Knight fundamentally that we'll get into.
Sure. And I'll admit, looking back on the great film that is Batman Begins, there are a few elements that just kind of stick out on a rewatch, and we'll get into this. A few elements like, I remember it quite like that. But yeah, we'll most certainly get into this. But seriously, folks, we got some really strong Batman films to do commentary on here, so we're gonna have boats loads of kind of fun. Fun revisiting them, and of course kind of re-experiencing our joy and kind of the history of the Nolan trilogy that of course culminated with The Dark Knight, the first superhero film by the way to reach $1 billion.
Yeah.
So
okay, so Dragon, let's take us back to the summer of 2005 after Batman and Robin, which look, I still have a fondness for on a So Bad It's Good level, but that's an entirely different conversation. But needless to say, that kind of tanked Batman's image in movie theaters for a while. And Dragon, I remember as a fan of Batman, one of the biggest slaps in the face was that original Scooby-Doo trailer.
Oh yes, I recall that. Yeah, that still ticked me off a little.
Yeah. So then Batman Begins, Dragon. I'll never forget seeing it with my dad. I didn't really know what I was in for, to tell you the truth. Like, this was like right after Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. Like, that movie had come out like a couple weeks before. And that movie was like, it has its ups, it has its downs. It's generally speaking a popcorn affair. Dragon, this movie, I feel like Batman Begins is a great kind of gateway drug into independent film because that's exactly what it is. You're right. It's kind of this crazy epic indie movie that happens to be about Batman. It happens to kind of take a lot of influence from year one. And Dragon, I just remember just being blown away in the movie theater, thinking that this movie was nothing short of like almost a horror movie or a psychological thriller with some of the elements that were going on. I remember the fear toxin really got to me. Just all the visual stuff with the fear toxin sitting in there in the theater as like a 14-year-old. I was super intimidated by all that stuff. And of course, all the performances really caught on, specifically Michael Caine as Alfred and Gary Oldman as Jim Gordon, which I'm sure we'll gush about as we go forth in the entire trilogy.
Oh yeah.
And Dragon, just walking out of that movie, I think Batman Begins changed the game. I think Batman Begins added an air of legitimacy to superhero films. It really was like Spider-Man 2 kind of did the same thing the year before, but Spider-Man 2 was still, by all intents and purposes, kind of like this summer popcorn blockbuster movie. And Batman Begins is like, it's not a popcorn movie, but I feel like it's all the better for not being a popcorn movie. This is a film that I feel like it just gets better with age, I gotta say, because rewatching it, Dragon, I'm telling you, I'm kind of curious what weak spots you have, because I gotta say, like,
when I say weak spots, I just mean like it looks a little different than you remember. All right, that means it's like you notice something you didn't notice before. It's nothing bad. All right, just a little
all right,
bit.
I'm just saying, like, for me, this might sound like hyperboil, but generally speaking, Dragon, after revisiting this movie for the first time in like almost, I would say this is the first time I've revisited this movie since around the time The Dark Knight came out. So it's been a good 10 years since I've rewatched this.
Even Dark Knight Rises? You didn't rewatch it before Dark Knight Rises?
I didn't rewatch it for Dark Knight Rises, no.
Wow.
Um I should have. That might have anyways.
All right.
That's kind of what I'm hoping for in the series, that, you know, watching them all back to back, I'll kind of get more of an appreciation for Dark Knight Rises.
Especially with Begins, I think it begins. It's a very circular thing to do with Rises and Begins. But again, of course, yeah, we're going to build momentum with these things. We're going to really focus on Batman Begins this first go around here.
Sure, so, but yeah, that's it, Dragon. You know, just walking out of the theater, I was like, oh my god, like this, like superhero, like that was the most realistic, bold. Like, even though it was totally a Batman movie, you can kind of tick off all the Batman boxes to it. It was just such a unique and fresh way to tell it, Dragon. I think that's the first time I ever really got into auteur filmmaking. Like I said, it's kind of the gateway drug in that way.
Of course, it has like the perfect welcome out of, hey, it's Batman. You recognize Batman, then you take a little step into the foray, and then, oh my god, not only is kind of like the Jaws of kind of a Jaws summer blockbuster of superhero film, but also has a substance much like Jaws does.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, for me, very simple. I only have like one really big piece of nostalgia for the movie. For me, I kind of lucked into all the live action Batman films. I always kind of stumbled upon them in my youth, and specifically because again, I was wrapped up in the animated series. That was my world. That was my Batman. I never really needed anything else, and I just kind of lucked into the Burton films, and I kind of found the VHS tapes of the films as they had come out already. Like that's how I experienced Returns, Forever, and Batman Robin. And
yeah, I definitely remember those VHS tapes, Dragon. I was kind of in the same boat with you.
Again, the animated series was my barometer for like what Batman is, and the rest of it was just kind of seeing, oh, this is how we do Batman on film, and just seeing how close it was based on the kind of my litmus test for Batman. Anyway, so I never really, honestly, until The Dark Knight, I guess, I'm just kind of thinking about it now, I guess until The Dark Knight really never had the theatrical Batman experience in retrospect. And here's the thing.
Oh, we'll talk about a theatrical experience when we get to The Dark Knight. I have a story about that one.
Well, here's my very small, minute story about Batman Begins. Very simple. I just had VHS tapes of the other films. And this one I had the weirdest introduction to Batman Begins. I was on vacation one day, and there was like this little crappy TV in my hotel room.
Yes.
I think it might have been a Best Western, so I don't know how you want to gauge that.
It's going, and I'm loving it.
So I had this, this really, it was like this practically static, and so it might have gotten some good receptions, like almost the early days of HBO type stuff, almost, I guess. Anyway, so it had come on TV, and I glimpsed it. And again, this is it's been years since like the last since Batman and Robin. So it's like, okay, Batman on film again. Man, this looks remarkably different than what I remembered. And the thing I remember most, again, with my animated series litmus test, is I'm watching and saying, huh. I happened upon the Ra's al Ghul scenes, let's say. I happened upon the Ra's al Ghul scenes, and we were introduced to Ducard. And I just had this moment where, oh my goodness, this actor, Liam Neeson, of course, before the Taken films, really kind of, he was like, if you didn't know Liam Neeson, now you know him. Again, right, on June and everything. I was like, the name that was Liam Neeson's like, man, this, that's Oscar Schindler, before all that. So I'm just saying, I'm watching the movie, and of course, folks, is the commentary. So
I got Chin.
So spoilers right out the gate, by the way, folks. All right, spoilers. Get ready. For some reason, you haven't seen Batman Begins. So I'm watching it, and I'm marking that, oh my god, the actor they have playing this Ducard character is like he sounds and looks like he looks and sounds what I would imagine, what I would hope that they would do with Ra's al Ghul.
Exactly.
In a movie, because based on
sort of experience in the theater with that.
Because the animated series has the perfect Ra's al Ghul that I grew up with, the David Warner iteration of Ra's al Ghul, and that's what I was like, oh my god, I love Ra's al Ghul, the character from the animated series, and I'd love to see that realized. And they're doing Ra's al Ghul, like, why aren't they doing, like, this guy's perfect for it? And of course, later on, big reveals, like, I knew it. So I just had like a few glimpses at the movie, mainly through the bad guys, if I'm being frank. So I didn't watch I got glimpses before I sat down and watched the whole movie, and I kind of immersed myself in the world. Then really got swept up in the big kind of the Dark Knight kind of huzzah of it all. But again, Batman Begins was kind of it snuck into my consciousness, like it snuck into the it's kind of swarmed below the kind of flew below the radar of a lot of people. Because again, it was kind of like a phantasm thing for the theaters, where if you didn't know this movie was coming out, you might have missed it. If you didn't basically catch on to the whole Tumblr and like Pizza Hut advertisements of Batman Begins, you may not have known this film was coming out. It was like a sleeper hit of the summer in a big way.
Yeah, like I said, it was kind of in the shadow of Star Wars. And if I remember correctly, Dragon, I hate to say it, but I'm pretty sure Rise of the Silver Surfer was also coming out that summer, and that also overshadowed it.
Well, I'm trying to. I think the first Fantastic Four came out the same time as the Tiki. Silver Surfer is 2007. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay, okay.
Might have been the original. I think it was the original Fantastic. The 2004 Fantastic, 2005 Fantastic Four. My mistake. Anyway, so brief. I'm gonna condense as much as I can here, folks. Just want to hit some background on Batman Begins here. So Batman Begins. Of course, Batman and Robin did its damage to kind of the Bat brand kind of superhero films for many. It's not just Batman, but for many other superheroes. A lot of that's why there's kind of a dry spell in kind of the 2000s era before Marvel was kind of slowly stealing DC's business after they kind of built the house of superhero films. Again, how the tables have turned these days. They were developing the next films, and of course, that's when you hear all these stories about the Batman films that almost were, like Batman Triumphant, the Schumacher sequel. Batman Beyond was in development, and again, you see where the momentum's going here. Darren Aronofsky's Batman Year One. Again, they were kind of building towards. They wanted to do kind of a more serious take on Batman, kind of take him back to kind of the Burton, if not beyond Burton. They were kind of backtracking to kind of more darker Batman, but darker and marketable. So they wanted a fresh take, to say the least. So they reach out to Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan at this point had 3 films under his belt. His first 3 films, he had The Following, he had Memento, and he had Insomnia. Those were the 3 films Nolan had under his belt at that time. Again, really kind of a niche market, but again, a really remarkable niche market. Like, oh my God, these films are blowing us away. How do more people not know about these films? So
I remember specifically the buzz around Memento at the time. Like, I was too young to appreciate Memento or even understand what it was about. But every one of the critics that I respected at the time, they were just gushing about it.
Exactly. So, this is all in 2003. Nolan comes in. He gives a 10-minute pitch about what he wants to do with this Batman film. 10 minutes. Nolan's that good, folks. We're going to be singing the praise of Christopher Nolan throughout this trilogy here. So, 10 minutes. He basically, on the whole, he just pitches kind of the way he phrased it, a Batman grounded in cinematic reality. That's essentially what he pitched. Maybe not like uber gritty and believable, but at least maybe not uber, like, it's not gritty, it's not like noir 100%. It's like not a Batman who, like, how can he do any of this stuff? It's like a Batman where he can do this stuff, and now you have a good idea as to how he does this stuff. So basically, selling you on it in like movie logic, but again, selling you on it, celebrating the cinema of it all. So he talks to David. He basically talks David Goyer into the project because he needs. I guess he's familiar with David Goyer. He wants someone to really project the accuracy of the comics. He wants someone to be kind of like, throw some sort, like what source material should we really pull from here? Like what exactly is? No one was a passing. He's had connections to Batman, but not deep cuts. He wasn't up to date on the Batman comics, to say the least. So he goes to David Goyer, and David Goyer is he's midway through the Blade Trinity film, which I believe he directed and wrote that one. So David Gore's like, I'd love to do this, but I can't. Nolan says, no, you need to do this. And he says, okay, well, he sold him on it. So amazingly, again, I love how kind of clandestine this whole production was, Tiki. They did all of this from Nolan's garage. I kid you not. Nolan had a nice garage, but he did all of this from his big garage. It was three people in this garage. It was Nolan, it was David Goyer, and it was Nathan Crowley. Nathan Crowley was I believe, the production designer. He built
origins of Apple.
Exactly. It's like, again, it's a cinematic version of the Apple company. So they built, basically they were building props and models, etc., and everything was built within Christopher Nolan's garage. They developed story in Nolan's garage. So they invited WB executives.
So they basically kind of built the world and the vision for what would become the Dark Knight saga.
Not only did they do that, they built actual awesome scale models, because they did use models in this movie. They used models of Gotham and everything. They literally built Gotham City in Nolan's garage.
Oh man.
And Warner Brothers executives, when they came there, they had to bring couches into the garage. Like, they brought Warner Brothers to Nolan's place. And Nolan, the funny thing about Warner Brothers is that they loved Christopher Nolan when they were making this movie. Like, they were very earnestly supportive of Christopher Nolan. They were like little schoolboys, idolizing their hero with Nolan. Honestly, I swear to God, they were, they were very supportive. Like, oh my God, Chris, whatever you want, you got. Like, they came to him in his garage.
Nolan was like a huge money maker for them or anything, but he was like a man of clout. You know what I mean? He commanded respect.
Exactly. Again, just the stars just kind of aligned with Nolan on this film. I love, my favorite story in the making of Batman Begins is they walk through the Bronson Cave. So literally the cave where Adam West and Burt Ward drove out of in the '60s Batman show, like a little little rocky overpass of the Batmobile goes before it leaves. In the opening, the little freeze frame of like the episode title and everything. Mm-hmm. That's where Nolan and David Goyer would walk. They'd walk and talk and figure out story beats, and they'd be walking to a diner, and they'd talk about the story, and they'd figure things out. And then, of course, they'd head back to the garage and take it down, put it on paper, and talk with Nathan Crowley and build some stuff. Goyer's going to his comic shop, and he's like, "Wait a minute, you're buying all these Batman comics? You're working on a new Batman movie, aren't you?" It's like everyone's like they're biting for details and everything. They're getting it's this clandestine production. Like they nicknamed it the Intimidation Game. It's like the Blue Harvest thing with Star Wars. Trying to keep it under wraps, and they're doing everything they can to keep it on lockdown, to keep it kind of like, if you're not paying attention to this, you're not going to know they're making a Batman movie, and hence the surprise and the sleeper hit of it all.
Yeah, and I think they did that intentionally because I don't think they wanted to hype up like, hey, we've got a Batman movie coming. Like, if anything, I think they wanted audiences to discover this.
We need more stealth. Batman's a stealthy character. We need kind of stealthy, making of some Batman films. We do.
Uh-huh.
So
the only thing I remember about the marketing was the teaser trailer, which was just the cold open that we see of the bats forming the Bat logo.
Oh yeah.
And the bats in the Bat logo, that was like one of the big points of marketing. Like, I remember that on billboards and stuff.
Certainly.
But that's about it.
Reaching the end here, so they focused on Bruce Wayne and Batman's origin. Like basically they focus on the Batman character in the past. There's always the villain usually steals the show in a Batman film, at least up to that point. And they really put focus on both sides of the character, on Bruce Wayne and Batman, two sides we rarely explore. We usually like, it's kind of a hit or miss with like an actor is either going to be a better Batman or a better Bruce Wayne. And what Nolan really wanted to do, he wanted to explore the training years of Batman, which of course Batman Begins is all about, especially in the kind of the first act, if you will. The fascinating thing to me is they pulled from 3 decades of Batman, 3 decades and 3 kind of stories from Batman. You had the 70s with the classic Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, like the globe-trotting Batmans from the 70s, Tiki, like Batman who trained around the world, who was like a world's greatest detective. Again, the stuff that gets us the animated series is very much the 70s Batman.
Was it young Bruce Wayne or just the idea of Batman doing all that stuff?
It was I think it was like a full, like we would flash back to Bruce Wayne's training. Like Batman would be globetrotting, and we'd have a flashback within the issue. Like, okay, this is why he's going to this place. Like, we go to the Himalayas and the mountains, like we do in this movie.
Gotcha.
Then the 80s, of course, year one predominantly. Year one, a few stories that kind of bled over from the 70s, like Man Who Falls, which we'll touch on when we get the thing going here. And lastly, and this one they did more so in the next movie, but of course they pulled from the 90s with Long Halloween, mainly with our kind of our mob, the mob element, and of course some setup for later on. We do pull from the 90s Batman a little bit and kind of our Carmine Falcone stuff. So I guess in the end, the film, of course, was kind of sleeper hit, went over like gangbusters, and even Kevin Feige himself, I read this somewhere, Kevin Feige, he expressed very publicly gratitude for Batman Begins, because the impact, it had such an impact on the origin film, and it redefined everything. God, remember, this is like a year or two before Marvel gets going working on Iron Man. They basically go with this very ambitious plan of like, we're just going to do our movies, and if we're lucky, we can connect and build the universe. In the grand scheme of things, Steve, even Kevin Feige's saying we don't have any of that without Batman Begins. Even Feige's thankful to.
And you know what the cool thing about Batman Begins is, Dragon, is that, like, not to jump ahead to the ending or anything, but the ending of this movie is like perfect, because if there was never another Nolan Batman movie, you could just make up the rest in your own mind. You can make up what a Joker in this universe would be like. But we got a Joker in this universe, and my God, did we see what that was like. So it's just the stars kind of aligned for this. You know what I mean? It was just kind of like this perfect, like, lightning in a bottle. I'll give it a solid 2.5 times.
All right. So, okay, you hit the folks with Lethal Weapon of it all, Tiki.
Okay, sure, folks. So, we're going to do our level best to make this a good podcast that doesn't necessarily require you to watch the film, but if you want to watch the film along with us, go ahead and get whatever streaming device or, the copy of the movie or whatever you're watching this on. Get it to timestamp 00. I am watching it on Netflix. I recommend you guys do the same thing, but you don't have to. If you have a copy, that's fine too.
You're your own person.
Yep. Okay, so get to timestamp 00. I'm going to count up to 3 and then say go. When I say go, we're going to all press play together. Are you ready, Dragon?
1 sec. Let me just double check. Okay, when ready. Of course, when you say go.
Okay, yeah, when I say go. All right?
All right.
We good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, just checking. All right, folks. Batman Begins in 1, 2, 3. Go! And Netflix is loading on me. Okay. There's a little bit of a lull there for like a couple seconds. I hope we're okay.
All right. So this was a new thing for, just to jump ahead a little and cover our ground here.
Well, the Warner Brothers logo just faded. Now I'm looking at the DC logo.
Yeah. The cool comics DC logo would have like the little printing of the inks and everything, and the DC of it all. Now we have the bats.
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Anyway, so fun fact about the opening here: you always have, when you see the bat signal in each of the Nolan films, and this is the only thing I'm going to say that breaches the other ones, by the way. They always have a tease of what's to come in the movie. Like we have the bats here, and of course, like the big swarm of bats is about to unfold momentarily. Fun fact.
All right, so sitting in the theater, Dragon, I think I can speak for everyone in saying this cold open, we don't We don't fuck around.
Nope. So this is all taken from a very specific Batman story, Tiki, and they really like this whole Bruce Wayne falling down a well. Now, to be completely clear, um, in um, in Dark Knight Returns, Bruce Wayne that he falls into the cave, but there's a specific story, and even more niche than that, Tiki, because of course Dark Knight Returns, everybody knows Dark Knight Returns. There's a story called Man Who Falls, where Batman's like, I believe he's like falling in the issue, he's doing something in the issue, and we flash back to him as a boy falling in that exact well, and he falls down there, and that's how he sees the bats. And then the whole issue is about basically it's a retelling of the origin, and we see him go to the Himalayas and everything, and train and everything. So all of that is basically the globetrotting early formative years of Batman's all within that story, and very much kind of a comic blueprint for Batman Begins. So much so that if you try to get that comic now after this movie came out, it's now very rare and harder to find because everyone realized, oh my god, they pulled from this book. We got to have this.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I remember in the theater, those bats, like, really freaked me out, that how close they got to his face and everything.
I mean, they really sell you on the fear and the drama of the bats, which again, it's believable why it's he dons the omen of a bat. You have to really sell that, otherwise it's like, okay, well, why is he? What's with the bat gimmick? We're selling this moment for later on, where it's gonna be like it's gonna be the make or break moment of the whole film. Like, I shall don the omen of a bat. Essentially, that's Nolan's mission statement. I'm going to justify that one panel in that Batman comic where he's saying, "I shall don the omen of a bat." You have to legitimize that. That's what he's doing.
I'm gonna make a whole movie about that, darn it.
Of course, we start the film. So one, by the way, a little historic thing here. I don't know if it's the first ever to do this, but short of like Star Wars, it's the first superhero film, to my knowledge, that starts without an opening credit sequence. We did kind of the Star Wars thing where we circumvented that until like the very end of the movie. It's like Batman Begins.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we have the trademark Nolan edit as we kind of jump around in Bruce Wayne's history here, which, of course, was an inspired choice and something that, of course, even years later with like something like Deadpool that we do play around with. We kind of how we edit around and kind of we get our cake and we eat it too, and we kind of like build upon the momentum of different years in the character's life.
Yeah, and from what you've told me, Dragon, the comic seems like a pretty interesting, convenient, like, Nolan must have discovered the comic, and he's like, yes, this plays around with time too. These guys get what I'm going for.
Yeah. So we're making all of we're making some great connections here. As I factor in like as Bruce is like he wakes up with the thoughts of him falling down that well, and we're kind of making these smart connections that we're going to fully pay off later on. We're making the connection of fear, bats, and Bruce's father. Again, three very important elements: fear, feeling helpless; bats, the symbol; and of course his father. Which, of course, these are the three elements that are going to define Batman's mission.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine like Bruce at this point, at the beginning of this movie, he's like in a 24/7 state of this 24/7 like nightmares about the death of the Wayne family. He's thinking about these things 24/7 in the form before he forms the whole mission of Batman, before he forms like the full picture of things. Like that's what's going on in his mind until he until he finally becomes Batman.
All right, so I like how this movie, like, it really, again, it just has a great pace to it, where right off the bat we see we see one scene of a prison brawl, and that's all we need to know. We don't need to linger in this prison. Ducard comes right away and kind of whisks him off, like, kind of like the Wizard of Oz or something like that, into this wonderful world of the League of Shadows.
Of course. Of course, just Batman Prison as a whole, it's kind of this fun, unconventional introduction to your hero. Again, before like you imagine, okay,
what should happen to Batman in prison?
Don't, not now. Don't do it. My point is, references aside. So, point is, Batman Prison is like you're going to this movie. It's like Batman Begins. We're going to see Batman right off the bat, like we do in the other movies. And it's like, no, it's this fun, unconventional introduction.
Zack Snyder's watching this movie, and he's like, man, Nolan, you got it right, except for one thing. There's one key ingredient missing here. I can't quite place my finger on it.
The point is, it's not your dad's.
I'm sorry, I'll stop.
My point is, it's not your dad's Batman right off the bat. So, by the way, Liam Neeson, we kind of passed. A lot of stuff's going to happen really fast here, folks. So forgive us, so we're kind of like lagging, but making a conversational as we can. So it's kind of a happy medium we're trying to reach here. This was Liam Neeson's first villain role. I don't know if you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting. And Ducard was a mentor to Batman in the comics. I don't know if he was directly in that. I don't think he was directly in the Man Who Falls comic, but again, he's from like that '70s era Batman. If not the like called back in the '90s, he was definitely in kind of that '70s, early '80s era of Batman. So
Well, I mean,
Ducard
keep
is
in mind, Dragon. I feel like Neeson is in that kind of Tom Hanks role where he only has a couple villain roles to his name. Whereas Tom Hanks, honestly, people say he's never played a villain. I say he has played one in The Lady Killers. That's the one time he's played a villain for my money. But Liam Neeson, definitely a more memorable villain. But really, when you look at Neeson's resume, you have Oscar Schindler.
yes.
And you have,
So
and then you have it's Space Oscar Schindler.
all right, Qui-Gon Jinn, of course, Brian Mills from Taken. There's a number of
Yes. You get my point.
so
Brian Mills is basically like it's badass Oscar Schindler.
right.
Right.
Action movie Oscar Schindler. So, of course, this is all shot. Now, they shoot the Himalayas, not in the actual Himalayas, but they shot this in Iceland. And of course, when you shoot in Iceland, it's very cold and very windy. So there's not a lot of special effects on this. Just in certain mountain shots, they have to add snow, mainly on the big kind of centerpiece of like the big culmination of all the Himalaya stuff. That's when we have the only time I think we really have fake snow. The rest of it's pretty accurate.
Oh.
Yes. So, by the way, in that scene, that conversation with Ducard, we have some fantastic lines that really like, you have so many quotable great lines from this movie that permeate the trilogy. Where you have if you want to become more than just a man, you devote yourself to an ideal and become a legend. I mean, it's a great thesis line for the entire film, and it's Nolan it's Nolan saying this is not your traditional vigilante story. This is how Bruce Wayne becomes a symbol. That's what the whole movie's about. This is how
That's
Batman begins. This is
about.
I'm sorry?
I said that's what the whole trilogy's about.
Well, certainly, but even if you looked at this again, this is a Nolan who doesn't know he's making more movies. You look at this as like a one-off Batman movie, and this is just like that's what he wants to say about the character here. It's like I'm going to look at Batman not as like a vigilante year one story per se, but I'm going to see how a man becomes a symbol, how a Batman would begin. And that's what the whole film's about, justifying like the start of Batman. Like he isn't just even when he's in the suit, folks, he's not necessarily Batman. He's still figuring things out until the end of the movie. That's when he fully becomes Batman, and he achieves, at least he's starting to achieve the goal of becoming a symbol. And we literalize that in a very moving way, which I'll crush over and possibly cry about like in the movie. So beautiful.
Of course, we have another Nolan staple in Ken Watanabe here.
Certainly. And I gotta tell you, Ken Watanabe, he's a serviceable Ra's al Ghul as well. Again, not as later. Again, as I said earlier on. Again,
you know what? I think it's intentional that he's just not very memorable. It's like I feel like the intention was like for people to be disappointed that he's our Ra's al Ghul.
See, that's a pleasant surprise there, folks.
Like, I mean, yeah, he's fine. Like I like Ken Watanabe as much as the next guy. And he does his job well, but like I said, Dragon, I truly feel like the rug under our feet of it all is the fact that Ducard is such a more convincing and more magnetic character.
True, and again, I think that is intentional. By the same token, it's like he's like serviceable until that disappointment. But thankfully, like Nolan has that trump card, like, hey guys, don't worry. I have, like, we got a great Ra's in our back pocket here. So if you didn't like that Ra's, we have the perfect Ra's. She's been there the whole time. We've been building as a character. You're gonna love it. So it's not jarring at all because of that. It's phenomenal. So by the way, I love that one. I love our transitions again. The editing's really great on this movie again. So thematically, you're in Bruce's head about what he's thinking of justifying the flashback. So he's saying you're afraid, but not of me. And of course, we cut back to Bruce when he was afraid in his youth. And this is the stuff, by the way, Nolan was very excited to get into with Bruce Wayne. Not just the training, but also the formative years of young Bruce Wayne, like Bruce Wayne as a kid, like what happened before the night of the Wayne murder. That's what he wanted to explore with Bruce Wayne. He wanted to get inside the head of the kid as he becomes kind of the man looking for a purpose, essentially.
Yeah, we get just enough Thomas Wayne here to really justify everything in the plot and really make Thomas Wayne a focal point. And I feel like this is one of the best retellings of Batman's origin. I mean, that kind of goes without saying in a movie called Batman Begins, but I mean just kind of like the alley scene of it all. This is one of the best alley scenes.
Now, I should tell you, Christopher Nolan, he's a huge fan, as many of us are, but especially Nolan. He was going into this movie. He was a huge fan of the Richard Donner Superman, and he borrowed. Here's the thing: he looked to Richard Donner the way that movie was made uh, for the casting. He cast big names surrounding. Again, got Christian Bale, who's roughly. Again, like the most known thing that he had done, aside from being a child actor in Empire of the Sun, of course, he did American Psycho. I think that was the biggest
Yeah,
credit that
American
he.
Psycho was definitely the biggest thing he'd done at the time. Yeah.
And I think The Machinist was most recent thing that he had done. I think, and again, when he did more on that when we get to the training with Bruce Wayne, the physicality of it all there, because there's some fun stories there. But
Oh yeah.
With Thomas Wayne, I love that he's Thomas Wayne. We hit all the right notes with him. I love that a visual like gave him like the long overcoat kind of again kind of like a foreshadow of Batman again how Bruce looks to his father as a hero. We have the doctor tending to his son, like he's not taking him to a hospital. It's like we show Thomas Wayne the healer, Thomas Wayne the doctor, and the reason I bring up the Richard Donner of it all is that I think we echo certain things from Richard Donner. I don't know whether that was a conscious choice or just implied. I like that it's a story about Bruce's father. It's like the son becomes the father's story, but kind of what Bruce is trying to do to become someone who's helping Gotham like his father. Now, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about
Yeah, let's talk about this nightmare-inducing acid trip right here happening in front of us, Dragon. I don't
this is
blame the kid for wanting to leave.
This is an opera. It's if I'm saying I'm butchering this, I believe. Mephistopel, Mephistopel, and it's an opera. And now, of course, many people might be scratching their heads like I was the first time I was watching. It's like, wait a minute, he's not going to the movie theater. Why isn't he going to the movie theater? And the reason for this is because he didn't go see the Mark of Zorro
He's not
as
going
Batman.
to the movie theater because this is a more sophisticated Batman movie. Damn it! Christopher Nolan's just like, oh, I just want you to smell the classiness.
All right, true.
All right,
There's
hold on. We have to talk about Joe Chill because this moment's fucking chilling and it's so realistic and it happens so fast and it's like, goddamn.
It's like one of those one false move type things. And there's no one centering on the little micro moments where you drop the wallet, and again there's that uneasiness, and again Thomas just going to shield his wife is what gets himself killed.
Mm-hmm.
Like these little, it's just like it all happens so fast, and of course Thomas Wayne has two very haunting lines that again shape the movie. Don't be afraid, and of course the titular line of the whole piece. Why do we fall, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So again, those two moments, and again, Tiki, one of the biggest. Again, the reason I bring up the Donner thing is again we have the theme of fatherhood, and then Bruce Wayne going from father figure to father figure throughout the film. I always love that observation of Batman Begins. I love it because it's so true and it's so great in building. You're speaking of father figure to father figure. We kind of start even immediately here. One of the first of the father figures you have is Jim Gordon here.
Oh my god. And okay, this is one of those J.K. Simmons type moments, Dragon. The casting on this couldn't be better.
Yes.
I mean,
and
I'm sure you agree as a Gordon fan. Like this to me, I'm sorry, I'm sure that you think the animated series Gordon is the best, and that's totally fine. And maybe I'll have the same opinion once I go all the way through the animated series. But Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon, or whatever the hell Lieutenant Gordon in this movie.
yes, well, yeah, sergeant to lieutenant. The whole yes. He's point is Jim Gordon.
My God, Jim Gordon in this movie in particular, Dragon. I mean, he has chances to sign in the other two movies for sure, but in this one, he has such a presence to him.
I gotta tell you, and this is something that is not something against the movie, just something that's kind of looking at it years later. It's kind of occurs to me. I think like the only thing you could really alter in Batman Begins, like the only thing it might be interesting to see altered is making the actors a little younger, like we do with Ant-Man these days. I'm not saying the movie does not need that. I'm just saying it's like the only choice I could ever fathom you would make to Batman Begins if you ever like look back on it, because that's the only thing that's a little noticeable. Is like, we have Gordon's supposed to be roughly 15 to 20 years. Well, I think it's more accurately here. It's like 15, like year one. I think year one's like 15 to 20 years. So, and
Gary Oldman is definitely not 15 years older than that little kid.
Well, I know exactly, but I'm saying looking at him there, that's the thing. I mean, regardless, it's
I him being 15 years older than current Bruce Wayne.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So you see the issue is what I'm getting at. So you have like, and of course, even with Alfred here, like we didn't really darken the hair that much, and like the only person who really changed in their youth was Mr. Earl. We gave Rutger Hauer like longer hair. That's about the only. It's about the only difference. And again, you don't need because
honestly.
Well, no, he shaved and he was in prison and everything. He was looking good for the court case. So, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, I know, but still, he changed his appearance more so than Alfred did.
Sure, and that's my point. My point is the performances shine so much it doesn't bother you, and that's the thing. I'm transfixed by that huge moment of Gordon putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders, and that moment still strikes me. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Like Gordon, like many iterations of the comics, he was the first officer on the scene, and I thought, oh my God, that's so beautiful. I mean, it didn't help Pat Hingle, but Pat Hingle did look to that moment when he was getting into characters.
Oh my God, there's so much going on. Shit, we haven't even talked about the Alfred scene yet. This is hard movie commentary on.
I know. I'm trying to bring up the Zorro thing.
Alfred, really quick. I love that moment where Alfred's just like, like Bruce admits his guilt, and Alfred's just like, no, it is not your fault. Like, he just comes to his aid so fast. Okay, now, oh man, the training stuff, Dragon, take us through it. Oh God.
Okay, real quick. God, there's a lot. Okay, so they used a very special fighting method for Batman Begins. It's a Spanish fighting style called KC. Now, KC is basically, it's very much revolves around the philosophy they worked into the writing of the film here, where it's mind your surroundings. It's essentially it's a real fighting style that is based around using your surroundings, being very grounded, and all about control. Like if you don't use the right amount of force, you could kill your opponent using this fighting style. So it's all about it's a very like this Bruce Wayne. I love that we had a line earlier on that established that Bruce Wayne had gone around. He had trained like various like different martial arts styles, but this is like the one that he basically learned the KC fighting method through the League of Shadows, which is very very cool. And basically learned the big principle, one of the great lines, Tiki, and of course a line that comes back in a really great way. And again, thematically, through all the films. Theatricality and deception, powerful agents. It's one of the great lines. Let me backtrack here because we're talking about training.
Back in one of the best scenes of The Dark Knight Rises, so you don't really have much to weigh on there, Mister.
Certainly. Anyway, let me backtrack the Zorro thing because Batman and Bruce is trying to become a hero here. We didn't have Zorro because Zorro Nolan feared. It was like. He didn't want the idea of heroes or masked vigilantes in Bruce's head. He wanted to kind of discover it on his own through like a different method. If you had kind of like a kind of vigilante 101 through a Zorro film, that's like one of the main reasons he didn't do Zorro, and of course the whole artsy kind of side of Nolan. So he had kind of a bit of both there.
Mm-hmm.
Also has the fear connect of the bats.
Ice stuff is freaking iconic.
Now, they rehearsed for this. They used the nice ring, and they rehearsed this whole fight. This padding and everything. They worked.
I just love how physical it is.
And of course, I do love how all these elements come back. The whole basically their fight here, of course, is what builds to the third act of the movie. I learned this, by the way. This line always stuck with me, and I always thought this to be true. The whole rub your chest, and the arms will do the rest. Like basically, your arms will catch up as you're warming your chest. And I found out that's Liam Neeson's acting is actually selling that line because it's actually complete BS from what I heard. Like that thing does not work. I heard that. I always assumed that to be true, and then I found out getting ready for this, like, oh my God, it was all fake. Again, he was so convincing.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
But yeah, and again, taking the father figure idea, and again the whole we have the father connect. Where again stuff like years later with like Batman v Superman, we have kind of the focus on the mother. It's very much like kind of what happened in the Superman films, where you have in Superman 2, not counting the Donner version, you had the focus on the mother because that's the only thing we really could do to differentiate it from the large focus on Jor-El and Kal-El, and we kind of have that here with Bruce and Thomas Wayne, all these phenomenal father figures he goes to, like Ducard, who of course eventually be revealed to be kind of the. Again, it makes even more sense when you realize who he actually is. So yes, that character has always been intended to be kind of a father figure to Batman. We kind of have that built in here, and of course we're name dropping some fun stuff about the history of Ra's al Ghul. Again, folks, spoilers. Is that during that campfire scene, Ra's does echo, or Raz, I guess. Forgive me if I say Ra's, folks. I think that's the actual correct way of saying that. I've grown up with Ra's. I know they go Ra's to Raz. It's a pronunciation thing. Raz's origin. In the very when you go chronologically in Ra's al Ghul's history, he did have a wife years and years ago before he discovered the Lazarus Pit, and that wife was taken away from. Ra's al Ghul does have a very tragic story, and over years he has sired many children. Of course, some of whom that we do meet in other iterations of Batman. So definitely, we definitely set some things up with Ra's al Ghul having children. Kind of a long history of Ra's al Ghul. Pulling from deep Danny O'Neill stuff. Danny O'Neill, the writer who created Ra's al Ghul, so they're doing real deep cut '70s stuff with all of this. Is my point, and basically we have a lesson in kind of managing your control. And let me put a pin on all that kind of League of Shadow stuff. Let's talk about some Alfred Bruce stuff right now.
Sure.
Yeah. So, of course, this is really great. And again, the ultimate father figure to beat all father figures is Alfred very easily, any day of the week. And, Alfred basically looking after the Wayne family because they gave him the one thing to care about most, which is Bruce Wayne. Like, he monitors the house, but he cares about Bruce Wayne. And, of course, I love the stethoscope that, we have the pearls for Martha Wayne, which, by the way, I did like that we had that little moment where Bruce, he showed, hey, I'm going to give this to your mother as a gift. And, of course, we had that connect with the pearls, even though we didn't focus on the pearls, but we did at least touch on them. And I love that we have, the reflection of that is the stethoscope with Thomas Wayne. I love that we have these great symbols of who his parents were. So this is a very chill.
The movie does a good job of kind of in terms of the makeup showing the passage of time through Christian Bale at the very least. Like, he does look legitimately younger in these scenes.
And again, they have different styles of the hair, which can help sell us. And folks, never underestimate these small changes. They do go a long way in kind of obscuring the age of an actor, because this looks like a Bruce Wayne in his 20s, and by that and maybe his mid 20s. It's 7 years before we meet him at training with the League of Assassins. That's the idea. It's 7 years before that right now. Mm. And yeah, I mean, later on his hair is going to change. And Better Call Saul, we see that all the time, where again, that's how we have Gene and Saul Goodman and Jimmy McGill looking like three different people entirely.
All right, Dragon, you ready for an unpopular opinion?
What do you got?
I personally think that Katie Holmes was better than Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I think they're different portrayals, and here's the thing. I think there's a case for Katie Holmes. My problem with it is that I would agree with, I think, the consensus where she's fine in the movie. Don't get me wrong, she's fine. But I think she's just outshined by everybody else. I think that's the issue. That's the thing. I think she's doing a fine job. Don't get me wrong. And again, comparing her to
Maggie Gyllenhaal wasn't the weak link in Dark Knight either.
True, but she had more. I think she had more story significance. I think she was worked into she was kind of she was the bridge. She was the bridge between things in that movie. Where again here, I think thematically, I think she's important. She's complementing the thematicism they're working on in this movie. But I don't know necessarily if that's I don't know if she's quite earning her place at the table necessarily. Yeah, again, she's fine, but I don't think it's it's the big takeaway from the movie, all the Rachel stuff.
Oh no, the Rachel stuff definitely isn't the takeaway. I just feel like I feel like she's got more of a girl next door charm to her, whereas Maggie Gyllenhaal is more kind of like an upper crust style Rachel, which maybe might be the point. I mean, it might be just her character development between movies is why she's that way. But
sure. And again, this is stuff more we should talk about in the next thing.
Yeah.
So this is a big inspired. We got to talk about this real quick. Okay, so this is a big inspired and chilling idea that Bruce Wayne pre-Batman is contemplating shooting Joe Chill, the man who killed his parents, with a gun. This is a big. It's a huge moment. And I love that it's Bruce Wayne motivated to this action by a broken system and a lack of justice. The fact that Joe Chill, and again, Rachel is culpable in this in somewhat because in her office, her boss, they they reach the deal where they can get Joe Chill out of if they get him out of prison, like an early parole, an early release, they can get information on Carmine Falcone. And in doing so, of course, it's a failure of the system. So we're cementing the idea. So again, through Rachel, we do kind of facilitate a few things here. That she represents kind of the failing system, but someone who's trying to change it and is representing that that system is broken, motivating Bruce to act here. And it smartly establishes this whole scene here, this car ride. We smartly establish that. We establish in court and we establish on this car ride here that Gotham is in a depression. Again, it's kind of inspired. Again, it's kind of like a second depression essentially that hit Gotham City, and it's driven Joe Chill to crime. That line, just mentioning depression in that court case, I feel complemented by visually what we're seeing here, really sells kind of this full circle villain plot. That amazingly, again, we have this amazing full circle plot where nothing is wasted in our villain plotting in this movie. And I think that's fascinating that we do so many things. We connect all of our villains in a way that doesn't feel convoluted. I think that's really hard to pull off. Where it was a crime of desperation, and we saw what the cause of that desperation. And by the end of the movie, you absolutely buy it. Like, yeah, I get what caused it. So we orchestrated the death of the Waynes, but not through like an evil concocted plan. It just happened that way. And we have the corrupt judge, by the way, in the courtroom that we're about to see. So it's all it's all relative. And Nolan does like to pull from real life events. So you saw a little bit of Lee Harvey Oswald in the death of Joe Chill. Kind of a very kind of Lee Harvey Oswald-esque hit on Joe Chill, like someone say, hey, walks up to him and shoots him after we get the shooter. So I think what we learn here is that Bruce learns that vengeance is empty and unfulfilling versus true justice. I think that's the big lesson that Bruce comes away with after this scene with Rachel here, because again, he got his revenge. Joe Chill was murdered, and he's thinking maybe that's a good thing. And basically, by the end of this little meet and greet with Carmine Falcone, he realizes, no, this. I do feel empty, and then of course he's left with the rage of like what he was willing to do, what he was prepared to do. Like Bruce entertaining. I just love this idea of Batman entertaining the notion of street justice in Gotham, and it's a very sobering lesson that he experiences here. And I just love the shame in the editing here, where just that moment with the gun is so powerful. He tosses it over. In that moment, I think Batman's is starting to be formed in that moment. Like the ethics of Batman's ethics are formed when he throws that gun into the river. I love that.
No gun? I'm insulted.
And I would wager my read on it, Tiki, on a rewatch is that I feel that he chooses justice. He chooses instead of vengeance, he goes with justice because he needs to fill this hole now. That he never got justice for Joe Chill. Now he's never going to be able to get like true justice for Joe Chill for killing the Waynes and everything, because he was murdered through crime. So his pursuit of justice, pursuit of saying
point though, he now has a second chance to have a clean slate, not being a murderer, not having that on his conscience. So it's almost kind of like an act of God in a way that he wasn't the one to kill Joe Chill.
It's sort of that thing in storytelling we really like to. It's like one of those Breaking Bad movies where you have a solution for our characters' problems, and we see how that how do we still have a story if the character is presented with a solution that early on? That's where the interesting story really gets in motion. I think we have that here a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Wilkinson, he's a great Falcone, by the way. I love that this is Bruce's.
Tom Wilkinson is fantastic, just in general. Yeah,
this is a great education in fear and corruption that runs Gotham. Again, this is basically him. Again, Tika, we do all this great exposition in a character-based way here, where we attach all of this, all the stuff that Bruce is going to need to know as Batman. That he's going to need to know when he's planning how to save Gotham. We establish it in a very impactful moment where it's like the moment after his parents' killer was gunned down by street justice. This is basically him learning that no, street justice is just an empty feeling. It's not true justice. And he's learning this, as he's beaten in a bar in front of the man who commissioned that death, the man who controls all the crime in Gotham. He's like, yes, the gunman's gone, but the man who commissions and oversees crime in Gotham is still he's still richer. It's really great. And of course, the idea that fear is power that you can't buy. Again, a symbol of how this whole scene is a symbol of how Gotham is shaping Batman's mission. That's what that whole scene's about. It's like how Gotham itself, through Falcone was the previous symbol of Gotham before Batman enters the picture. And that's a symbol of what Gotham was to what Gotham will be. And I love how later on, like around kind of the almost middle of the movie, roughly an hour into the movie, we have those symbols combating each other. And it's kind of Batman saying, no, I'm the predominant symbol. Hope's going to trump injustice. It's something along those lines. Really, really neat.
It's a nice coat.
Yeah. This actor, he's in a lot of stuff, by the way. He was in X-Men First Class. He was the bad guy in Taken 2 to connect it to Liam Neeson.
Wow.
Again, we have these touches. Nolan has this knack for having touches of genuine levity in his very serious, thought-provoking movies. He has like these, like, you know, Inception has levity in it. This has levity in it. We get away with having like jokes.
A little bigger, darling.
Something along those lines, yeah. And of course, just Bruce Wayne dropping off the grid. Going global.
The idea of him kind of like learning to appreciate, like, and to have empathy for thieves.
Yes, and again, he needs to
eventually in the trilogy tie into the Catwoman of it all.
Certainly, and again, T, it's a fascinating idea here because Falcone spelled out to him, you don't understand these things. You don't understand fear. You don't understand corruption, essentially. And now this is Bruce, like, you know, again, like you're up there, you're a rich guy, mom and dad got shot. You don't understand what it means to kind of come down. You still have people you care about. So he's understanding the desperation that bred Joe Chill. He's understanding where Joe, like, he's gaining some sort of empathy for Joe Chill. How perverse and awesome is that idea? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's kind of what he's learning. You know, he's feeding, but at the same time, he's feeding the hungry and he's stealing from Wayne Enterprise. He's choosing safe targets that, again, he's like not willing to kill people. And I would imagine he would stop them from killing other people within his power. But he's still in that world. It's like it's understanding. It's understanding your dread. It's understanding so you combat what you're going to combat years later. It's the ultimate.
Well, in a way, it becomes less about stopping the Joe Chills of the world and more about stopping the system that creates the Joe Chills of the world.
It's like, how can you stop the superstitious and cowardly if you don't understand how they think? It's like him knowing what a criminal is going to do. It's fantastic. So now we have a lesson in fear, and that's kind of what we have here. Now, we have a lesson. Bruce has a firsthand lesson in fear, and we have a journey inwards. He embraces and manages his fear. That's kind of what Bruce Wayne's real big. Before he can like don the suit, this is the big lesson he has to contend with and face, so he can form the idea of the Bat. It's a very well choreographed sequence, by the way, here with all these League members here, all these League of Shadows members, and of course Bruce is kind of trying to sniff out Ducard and all this and avoid being, basically.
Imagine being like this, but with the Court of Owls.
Oh my God, that would be that would be delightful, and I'd love to see that scene. I desperately love to see that scene. But yeah, I mean, honestly, it's the whole of like Bruce kind of studying under the League of Shadows. Which, by the way, if there are any diehard fans like wondering why didn't they call them the League of Assassins, well, there's a very simple reason for that. Bruce Wayne wouldn't join a group called the League of Assassins. I remember that complaint, and they're like, no, that's the very simple reason. I know it's annoying, but you have to live with it. Does it make sense? Anyway, so yeah, right here, like now he's embracing the fear of the bats, like again the thing that he dreads. He has to kind of contend with, and of course, also with all of this, by the way, of course, now we have like Batman Ninja. It's kind of vaguely we have Batman Ninja with all this ninja training.
Put that and this in the same sentence.
Have you seen that?
No, but I've heard enough just to know.
Kind of cool, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd recommend it just to from an animation standpoint. You got to check it out, Tiki.
All right.
Like, I'm not saying you're gonna love it. I'm just saying you're gonna be wowed by it. All right. So yeah, the first-hand lessons by the League of Shadows here. I mean, this is all great. And of course, seeing the uniformity and again, like how he's gonna be able to stand toe to toe with these guys. And of course, if anyone's wondering, like, why is he able to take out the League of Shadows later on very easily? Well, the fact that he's got a little something extra. Again, he has that one thing that sense of ethics, that sense of right and wrong that they don't. They're following orders. They're following soldiers. They're thinking as one thing. Where Bruce is kind of not only thinking as a League member, he's thinking as himself, and he also has like some other forms of training. So again, he's a lot of Bruce Wayne is informed into this League of Assassins, of this League of Shadow member. And of course, a really clever little shell game that he pulled on Ducard there. By the way, just really, I always love that scene. I love the smirk by Ducard. There's like, I trained him well.
That scene is almost kind of like the first. I mean, it's not necessarily a bat exit, but it's like a bat fake out, if you will.
You're right. It is a bat fake it, but also, I mean, the thing that Nolan in the trilogy, again, we'll touch on more when we get to later things, but Nolan's also acknowledges that he didn't this film specifically, he didn't really go for a detective Batman, but you do have shades of detective Batman. It's like Nolan's Batman isn't really a super detective. He isn't the world's greatest detective, but he is a detective, and he has those detective moments that at least there's enough to get a foot in the door of like, yeah, we can still call him a detective. That's the thing we have here, where he basically that little shell game was very much kind of a smart, kind of classic Batman detective moves. Like, yeah, that's Batman. It's like the only regret I really have in the movie, it's like he never called him detective, but that's not the story that Nolan's telling. Like Ra's al Ghul calling Batman detective would have been fantastic, but it wouldn't have made much sense here.
So, Dragon, I'm curious at this point. Like, of course, watching this movie now, Batman comes at the perfect time, and the movie's paced perfectly.
Now we're into the movie.
Sitting in the theater, Dragon, first time watching it, were you getting impatient?
Well, again, I didn't see it in the theater, but the first time watching it, I gotta tell you, I was swept up in it. I think that's the balancing act the movie has for itself. That you like, it satiates you with all the Bruce Wayne origin stuff, and we have this stuff interspersed. Again, it's Nolan being really clever in the editing. That even he took a chance that, okay, I'm going to focus on Bruce. I'm going to build there. He made it compelling, and just in case you weren't compelled, you'd have the origin of Batman to satiate your appetite until you get the kind of the bat meal of it all. You're seeing the ideas come into place, because that's something that I would imagine, like, if anyone has a great Batman Begins, it could be that we lean too heavily on the ninja stuff, but which I would defend, saying, well, no, this stuff is all we see the idea forming here, where he refuses to kill. We saw him like throw away the gun, which of course Batman not using guns, but more so realizing that he's not a killer, and we set up that idea and we pay it off here, where we have this great conflicting idea that Bruce needs to realize here, like, you do what is necessary. We have do what is necessary, and an idea we have in the Dark Knight, I'll speak this briefly, is that we have I do what I can with what I have by Jim Gordon. It's a great line by him. So we have like these do what you can and do what is necessary. Do what is necessary is one of the great lines of the movie, and that we see that Bruce has they have a similar plan to cure Gotham. Bruce wants to cure Gotham, but in a non-lethal way. So we're seeing that line here. We're seeing the classic idea of Batman, Ra's al Ghul here, is that they want similar things. Like, Bruce is a no-brainer to be a member of the League of Shadows, but again, there's that divide there where he cannot take that step. He can't kill anybody, otherwise he's no better than the criminals that he's understood how they think. And again, that's crossing a line where he's full criminal. He can't. There's criminal, and then there's the guy who's trying to better people by not being criminal.
Sure.
So again, it's kind of that father figure and that mentor thing. Again, it's that idea, the grand idea of Ra's al Ghul, my favorite idea with the character, is that Bruce has an opportunity to gain everything that he lost. You have that father figure, and you have your mission on a global level. You can accomplish everything Batman wants to do, but to do that, you have to cross that line. You have to kill people, even possibly on a global level. You're going to have to wipe out people by the city, but you'll get everything you want. We only target the criminal element. We're targeting exactly what you want to stop. So we're just taking basically Batman believes, again, in a half measure where they want the full measure. That's essentially what they want.
And there was a very anticlimactic death of Ra's al Ghul, Dragon.
And that's the thing. It's like we build up Ra's al Ghul. It's like at that point, I'm thinking, oh man, it's a shame that we.
Are you kidding me right now? Like, such an iconic comic book character, and we barely he had 2 lines, and then was just like unceremoniously disposed of.
And at that moment, that's where I'm starting to think, like, man, it's just a shame. Like that in the campfire scene earlier on, I'm thinking, like, again, Liam Neeson, he'd be a perfect Ra's al Ghul. It's a weird choice that Nolan made here. Well, it's a weird choice that, again, before you even know who Nolan is, it's a weird choice that filmmaker made. And again, it's like again, I'm just at the first time watching this movie, I'm just kind of taking it. Okay, this is a very different Batman movie, but I'm on the hook. I'm interested in what they're doing here, what they're saying. I'm kind of in these moments like, oh man, it's a shame. You know, that's it's kind of a knock against the movie. And of course, he completely buys it back later on. It's like, well, there you go, he fixed it. But yeah, man, I love this. Neeson had an idea in the scene where basically Bruce kind of brings down the whole place before the fight breaks out, where Neeson tries to reach out to him as Ducard tries to reach out and saying, Bruce, you don't understand, you really have to do this. Neeson had the idea of like come to him in friendship of like he wasn't just saying no, you have to do this. He's saying no, please, you really have to do this. And that's the draw of Ra's al Ghul, you know.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, oh yeah.
By the way, that cliffside stunt, the big cliffside stunt, that was they're really on the side of a mountain, and they have fake snow on that mountain to kind of cover up the rig that they have. Basically,
what's funny about that is it's almost kind of like Mission Impossible-esque the way they shoot it.
Again, Nolan is a guy who believes in practicality and deception, not theatricality and deception, or at least theatricality and practicality. Where we have two very bold stuntmen. Again, they're hanging on to each other for dear life. Don't get me wrong; it's not like a Tom Cruise suicide thing where he's not doing it without wires or anything. Like there's protection. The actors aren't doing their own stunts. We have two really good stuntmen, but we do have Christian Bale on the side of a mountain. By the same token, though, and we do have it's like they are filming that. And we do have IMAX cameras. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. We do have. I'm jumping ahead here. We have cameras on the side of mountains like years later Nolan will do with IMAX cameras where he'll like have them in very intricate places and have rigs built for them. But yeah, we're kind of echoing that here. We have a guy on a slide sliding down the snow with the camera focused on the action. And you have Christian Bale on as close to a safe distance he can on a mountain. I think they might blue screen some distance behind it somehow. I'm not entirely sure they made that happen, but it's like we have a perspective shot of Christian Bale like looking down. So the actors are in the physical location somehow. That's quite impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's Batman saving someone at the cost of himself. Well, we use the gauntlets to save. But we finally justified after all these years. We justified the Bat gauntlets, why he has those little spiky bat things on the side of the gauntlets. It helped him save. One can break. So
that was like a big thing that people talked about.
Well, I mean, these movies really got that conversation going because now we do fun stuff with the gauntlets. But I think this might have been the first time we really gave them a purpose. Before it was just kind of aesthetic, cool design thing.
Right.
Before they were just like, well, why does he have those things? Yeah.
Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the acting MVP of the whole damn movie.
Victor Zsasz.
Well,
I'm kidding.
Cillian Murphy. Oh my god.
Yes. Oh my god, Cillian Murphy. He auditioned for.
What a goddamn perfect Jonathan Crane.
Yeah, he is. Here's the thing: he auditioned for Batman. They even put him in the suit. They put him in the Batman suit. They auditioned for Bruce Wayne and everything, and he just wasn't right for that. But they loved him so much, like we got to put this guy into a. Nolan was so enamored with him, we got to put this guy into a movie. So they made him Crane. I can't blame him. And of course, it's been love ever since. I mean, Cillian Murphy keeps showing up, and I love this actor. By the way, I love when he shows up in the other Nolan films. He's delightful.
Dragon, a couple years before Batman Begins, I saw him in a little Wes Craven thriller called Red Eye, and he was alongside Rachel McAdams in that movie.
I know he has a show on Netflix, at least a show that's regularly on Netflix, if not directly on Netflix. I think it's Peaky Blinders or something. I forget the title, but it's
Peaky Blinders. Yeah, I think that's it.
Right. By the way, I'm sorry, we glazed over some real important stuff here. Let me hit a few things here. Of course, I think one of the best lines in the movie, one of the absolute best lines, but there are a lot of great contenders, folks. One of the best lines is Bruce on the plane with Alfred saying, people need dramatic examples to shake them out of apathy. As a symbol, I could be incorruptible, everlasting. Again, forming the idea of the symbol of what he needs to become as Batman, and we kind of see it as an achievable goal by the end of the movie.
Sure.
So, let's see. Of course, now this is the moment I was referring to, where he's planning his mission, very year one style. He has like all the files and everything on the ground, And you see, again, I love that Jim Gordon. We see Jim Gordon's pictures, like, oh, he's got a soft spot for Jim Gordon because he was there the night his parents died. Oh, that's nice. That was that was great. Again, he knows he's a good cop, and he's double checking. He's like, oh yeah, I can reach out to this guy. But as that's happening, Tiki, that's the big I shall don the omen of a Batman, where he's in that room and he sees that bat, flying around the room.
You're right. That's exactly it.
Essentially, again, it didn't crash through the glass or go through an open window, but it's in the house with him. And again, that bridges to the real big, kind of I shall don the omen of a bat moment, where in the Nolan, kind of the Nolan translation of that idea is through exposure therapy. He goes into the Batcave, literally goes through. I love that he enacts what his father did, where he wears like a large, more again, he's progressively getting more and more Batman-like. Tiki's that he wears this long overcoat, a black overcoat, as he goes in here. Again, we're getting these coming down on a rope, like his father did to save him, and he ventures into the Batcave. And again, in the Batcave, he is facing his fear by exposing himself to that fear. And again, he's trying to take ownership of a symbol. Again, a symbol that fills him with fear very clearly as we see it. He is filled with fear. And again, he needs to conquer that fear, or at the very least, control that fear so he can spread that to others. And again, he's understanding the criminal element. So if he's afraid of
the movie theater for me,
he's going to make the criminals fear the bats like he does. And that's going to be they're going to share his dread, as he says, apropos what he says later in the movie. Of course, the Hans Zimmer score is great, by the way. And speaking of bats, just a little fun fact: all the track listings on the Batman Begins soundtrack that he and James Newton Howard came up with, they're all named after like the official, I guess the official names for various different species of bats. They're all bat names, and there's actually like from tracks I think 4 to 9. They spell out Batman. Like if you chronologically in the score, like there's like B-A, it's like a Frings back thing, Tiki. It's like BATMAN. Kind of funny. So, by the way, this is a great idea. By the way, I love this. This is one of my favorite ideas with with the criminality in Gotham in this movie. One of my favorite world building things in the whole Nolan trilogy. Gotta be honest, one of my favorite world building things in the whole trilogy. I love this idea that Gotham was such a corrupt place. Again, very year one level corruption. It was such a corrupt place that we used Arkham Asylum to house mob lieutenants and mob hitmen and all these sorts of things. They plead insanity and they go to Arkham Asylum. I just love seeing how it works here. Falcone has an arrangement with Jonathan Crane. Jonathan Crane, of course, has an arrangement with Ra's al Ghul, but of course we're going to learn that later on. And the point is, again, they have this arrangement where I put my men in your asylum, put my men in your asylum, and you verify that they're crazy, and that's their get out of jail free cards. So they go away for like a couple months, and then they can walk out of there scot free, essentially, after six months or so, be my guess. Mm-hmm. And I love that's how they're circumventing prison. It's also borrowed from Arkham Asylum, Living Hell, the book where the world building idea in that book is like, hey, it's if you can take the insanity plea, but at your own peril if you go to an Arkham Asylum full of villains. So the idea we do this before the supervillains in Gotham arrive, I think is a fascinating idea, and seeing how the crime works in Gotham. That's all great. So yes, Bruce is back.
Yeah, and as much of a playboy as ever, and it's good to see him kind of like living it up in the early scenes in this movie before the Batman really takes effect. And that's an interesting thing with this movie is kind of the contrast between Christian Bale playing Batman, Christian Bale playing public Bruce Wayne, and then Christian Bale playing, the in private Bruce Wayne that interacts with Alfred.
Certainly.
And so we have kind of like the public Bruce Wayne who's he's very much just kind of like that arrogant, flamboyant party boy near the beginning, but at the same time, by the end of the movie, we're gonna see him kind of like almost intentionally crash his image.
Essentially, he's playing the idiot nephew version of Bruce Wayne. Kind of use a Roy E. Disney parable here, like a Roy Disney parable, where he's just playing like, okay, my name's on the company, just compensate me, I'll be off to the side, no harm at all. Because again, he wants access to to applied sciences, so he can get some bat tech essentially, so he can get some Batman gadgets. Oh yes,
Oh,
and
I love this dragon.
yes I do, yes I do. So again,
Is
I
Bull
knew I
Warehouse as a cue to a potential Christopher Nolan Batman ride?
that'd be good.
You see like the convoy of tumblers.
Sure. But yeah, of course, Nolan is a huge Bond fan, and it's so fascinating that the Bond movies, the recent Bond movies, were inspired by the Nolan movies. It's so full circle. He wanted to make kind of a Bat movie with some Bond elements, and they made Bond movies with Batman elements. I think it's so fascinating. Uh, but yeah, of course, I love, you know me too. I love pseudoscience and I love gadgets. And of course, what do I love more than I love Batman with gadgets? So all my wish list, came true here. One, we got Lucius Fox. He's never been in a movie before, and I remember him from the animated series. So of course, Lucius Fox shows up here. It's like, oh my god, yes. And Morgan Freeman's playing him. How better could you get? And of course, Nolan had to sell. He sold Morgan Freeman. Morgan Freeman was hesitant to do this because at the same this is before Wanted. This is before Morgan Freeman had really done comic book movies. So this was kind of a sell to him, but Nolan broke through there and kind of opened Freeman up.
This is so much more like I like Wanted, but this is so much more respectable than Wanted.
So again, I love the I love the pseudoscience here, and again, I love that Lucius Fox is yet another father figure for Bruce Wayne. He's the link between Thomas Wayne and Lucius Fox. He's the because again, he helped him build the train. I love that train was a symbol of the outreach of the Wayne family. Like the one thing that Thomas Wayne really cared about with the Wayne, again, he was a humble doctor who then invested his money smartly and he built a company. All he really cared about was stuff like the train project. Again, like bridge the gap between between the upper class and the lower class of Gotham. Essentially, that's kind of what he was aiming for to do that. And in the very grounded pseudoscience basically helps us fill in the blanks of how do we get like a Batman, how do we get like kind of a man in a rubber bat suit, essentially. And we kind of justify that and lend a lot of credibility here. We lend a lot of credibility to the why of Batman. Of course, we do that through fear and as to why we don the image of a bat and the functionality of why he dresses like this. So we have the Nomex survival suit. And as we see later on when he's spray painting it black, that's him giving like a latex coating, hence the rubbery looking suit. And of course, again, believably we have a bat suit through that method here, and we're testing kind of like there's a grappling function. So basically, how Batman can grapple, we have basically the grappling harness is built into the suit. It's kind of undercoating the Nomex survival suit essentially. And of course, all this stuff here we have like the graphite cowl, and I love I love how smart Alfred's being. Alfred, he's not responsible for everything like the Jeremy Irons Alfred that we have. That we have in Batman v Superman and kind of the DC, the early DCEU. But we do have Alfred making very smart choices. Alfred knows how to keep up appearances. Alfred knows how to kind of balance both sides here. We're saying, well, if you want a mask, because again, we have the suit, we have everything, but we don't have a headpiece. We don't have the bat. Basically, we don't have the bat ears or the bat mask of it all here. We don't have the cowl element. And to do that, you need to order the pieces. You need to make it yourself. So you're gonna have to order it in small pieces from like dummy corporations. You have to order like 10,000 of it, and hopefully that works. You have to avoid suspicion. Now, of course, right here, big year one pull. Jim Gordon in the Corrupt Gotham with Flash. Of course, Flash, basically Nolan pulled one of his favorites from, I believe, Memento. I think this guy's from Memento.
Dragon, I thought it was Flask in the comics, not Flash.
No, it's Flash.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Believe me, I'm sure it's Flash. Even in Gotham, we had him as Flash. It's
yeah.
I know Flask makes sense, but if for some reason it's not Flash, they went with Flash. I don't know.
Yeah, Flask does make sense. You're right. It's like
the thing. I don't know why they never went. Anyway, it does. I guess they figure it's too on the nose. So okay, speaking of Gotham, just speaking of all sorts of things here. So I've been saying for years, of course, whenever we think of ski mask Bruce Wayne, we jump to year one. But I want to be technical here for a moment. I'm pretty sure this because I looked into it up and down. Batman Mask of the Phantasm was the first time we ever saw Batman, the early Bruce Wayne proto Batman as a vigilante with a ski mask. That was Mask of the Phantasm, but it's inspired by the year one idea of Bruce Wayne just going undercover to fight crime before he has the idea. So whenever you say year one, folks, you're thinking of Mask of the Phantasm, which means you're thinking of this in part. All relative, folks, which makes me hope that again, they did this once in a comic where, again, inspired by Phantasm, they put Batman in his formative years in the ski mask one time, And years now after the Nolan films, now we do the ski mask all the time. That's the thing when we go to the early years of Batman, because Phantasm, Nolan, they have to get the right idea here. So all of this is great, by the way. So I love the. We're fast forwarding through a lot of year one here. So we have Gordon and Batman. Like, this is the closest we get to doing the whole Gordon having to pursue Batman here, where we have this beautiful gag with the stapler where he's basically he's getting Gordon at his mercy here, and they're saying like we're going to work together. You're just one man trying to do this. Like, now we're two. And of course he basically pulls again. This is a Batman who's not fully formed yet. He's pulling the sloppiest bat exit, and it's hilarious. He runs away and he just jumps on the. He hurts himself. It's great. It's like Gordon actually keeping up with him during a bat exit. It's fantastic. As I love seeing all these little pieces come together, and the beginning of this beautiful friendship kind of starting, like a method of Gordon is played like such a sad sack, like he classically is in those early years, where he wants to become, he wants to be an honest cop in Gotham, but there's no one he can really go to. Like, he's alone, so he can't go to anybody saying, hey, there's corruption in Gotham, we got to do something. He's just given up hope at this point, and Batman is the hope that has entered his life now. I thought it's such a beautiful idea that was so well captured. Basically did the end of year one, kind of the middle / the end of Batman year one, right off the bat with these two characters, and that was an inspired, smart choice.
Dragon, what timestamp do you have?
Matt, well, again, on Netflix, to bear in mind how much time we have left, I guess.
You can zoom in on the.
All right, well, it won't be accurate, but it's like roughly 56, roughly 56 minutes. 57 minutes. The Tumblr thing's about to happen. He's about to go. He says, the Tumblr, oh, you wouldn't be interested in that. They're in the Tumblr right now.
They're in the Tumblr right now?
Yeah, they're driving through in the Tumblr right now, talking about like how it was a bridging vehicle. So, fun thing about the Tumblr. So the Tumblr, again, I mentioned the earnestness of the studio which is in Nolan's corner through the whole movie. They, it's so, I imagine it probably didn't go down like this, but they very respectfully, very sheepishly, I imagine very fanboy-esque, they asked him, hey, so do we have a Batmobile in the movie? He says, no, I wasn't really thinking of a Batmobile. Batmobile would be pretty cool. Basically, that's how I imagine the conversation went down. Like, basically they nudged him into a Batmobile. Like, he said, okay, fine, I'll put a Batmobile in the movie. Of course, Nolan's version of it had to legitimize the Batmobile, so more on Nolan's plate here, we had to legitimize it as the Tumbler, which of course borrows a little bit from Dark Knight Returns, the whole, the giant tank-like Batmobile. But again, what we did to make it more practical is we combined two vehicles. Nolan made a very crude clay mock-up for Nathan Crowley to build, which was a combination of a Lamborghini, which we do see later in the trilogy, and a Humvee.
Have we gone to the "Does it come in black" line yet?
Well, it's already passed, Deegan. Now we're on the whole. He's listening outside the.
Sorry, man. I'm just my Netflix lagged out for a second, so you're gonna have to excuse me.
Right. Well, now that okay, he's breaking he broke the graphite mask just now. Alfred just broke the mask. I avoid falling on your head, sir. Anyway, what was I getting at? Oh yes, so the Tumbler, it's a mixture of a Humvee and a Lamborghini, and the amazing thing about the Tumbler, well, I'll put a pin in the Tumbler. We're going to talk about the Tumbler during the big Tumbler.
Can you tell me when we get to 1:16:56 on the countdown?
1:16:50. Okay. Okay, I'll let you know. Okay. So yes, of course, I love here we're seeing the memory cloth. By the way, the memory cloth is actually based on a real science. By the way, that was something that was actually in development. Like this, you run a current through the fabric, and it can take fabric that can take shape as he's like kind of figuring out the bat cape of it all. There, it's all kind of again based in the realm of reality. Again, maybe not entirely practical, but again, it is believable at least. Again, that's what Nolan's like doing so well here.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Right now we have Flass here. Flass is basically, I think. Oh yes, we're reaching the hour mark here. So we're getting close to the. We're getting real close to the hour mark here. Of course, the hour mark is where Batman.
That's why I'm really focused on getting myself back on track.
Right. Anyway, so I like this. I like how we have like the regular kind of business drugs, and we have the fear, essentially the fear toxin drugs being smuggled in like stuffed animals, and like the rabbits go to the narrows, and the bears go to the streets. So I like how we have like this kind of science to this kind of this routine to the corruption in Gotham. It's kind of a smart little smuggling system they got worked out there. It's seeing why the corruption is strong in Gotham. And now we're having some really great some fun here with with uh, with Batman pulling some great stealth and some great kind of using fear to his advantage, scaring the criminals of Gotham at the loading dock. I mean, what Nolan did so clever. A lot of people have taken issue with this during the action scenes, but it is very intentional in this movie, folks. We have Batman shot from the criminal's point of view. That's why, one, we have these great vanishing shots of our criminals, like they're going near the crates and everything, and they're disappearing. It's very, very scary and very horrifying because we're kind of with the criminals in their perspective here. And during the action, the reason we don't see a lot of Batman like we do later in the other films, fighting hand to hand, usually using the KC fighting style, is the fact that he's sorry, the fact that he's basically, it's like Batman just comes in, you kind of takes you down, you don't know what happened. It's like that's kind of what's being captured on film. That's why we have.
What I like about it is that it kind of keeps with the rest of the movie, sort of like horror aesthetic.
Yeah,
where Batman in his own right, like since we're seeing him from the criminal's point of view, and since it's being shot like that, he's as scary as any of the fear talks and stuff in this movie.
exactly, and that's him building fear even without again having the fear toxin in play there. Again, that's him starting to achieve his goal. Again, he's becoming a symbol and becoming like a symbol to fear more accurately.
Okay, is it getting close to my timestamp?
Getting close. Again, that's countdown, right?
Yes, it's on the countdown. Yeah.
Make sure. Right now we're having like the where are you?
Okay, 1:16:56.
It's getting. I'll let you know. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Saying, where are you? Here.
That's great, by the way. That's such great trolling by Batman.
This is the action I'm talking about here, where again it's like you blink and like what hit you, and that, again that's what Batman would be to these criminals. So again, it was a very it's a justifiable choice, I felt. Basically, we're building to the big, the big. What are you?
I'm Batman.
Yes, again, kind of a reference to not just '89. Of course, one of the lines that's become iconic with Batman over the years. Okay, right now.
Okay, got it.
Right here. So now we're basically getting to the whole on Batman moment, essentially. I love this little sawed-off shotgun that Falcone's using. Here we go. I'm Batman.
I mean, I definitely think it is an homage to '89 though, because it's like he grabs the guy, he brings himself right up to his face.
Yeah.
And of course, nice coat.
Of course, by the way, that whole scene, just like kind of the drug operation at the docks, it is kind of borrowing. It might be inspired from a scene in Year One where Flash, he basically in Year One, Flash is telling a story of like how Batman was interfering in police business, where we actually saw that Batman was stopping one of Flash's corrupt drug operations near the docks. So we kind of like, I wonder if they took inspiration from that scene, because Flash was there. It wasn't taken down by Batman, obviously, but kind of what unfolded.
Uh-huh.
Here we go. Here's our big. This is a great moment here, and it's kind of showing what Batman will do here. Because again, we don't necessarily have a Batman who's about like patrolling the streets and stopping crime everywhere he sees. Again, it's open to that at the end of the movie. By all means, he can get to that point. But right now, he's kind of trying to influence broad.
Out of herself, she looks.
Yeah. Again, this is kind of close to Batman stopping a mugging, which of course is the inciting incident, of course, what created Batman. So we kind of have that alluded to here, and again, I think that's fine because of the broad, sweeping nature. He's trying to change the city like his parents were trying to change the city. So again, it's kind of it's a little different than your traditional Batman mythos, but again, it's kind of an inspired change.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Where's Bat Exit? Yeah.
Yep. And I love how we cut right from the Bat Exit to Gordon. Very appropriate.
Of course, and this is great here. Of course, we have this fun gag here where it's like, we're never going to tie Falcone to this. I wouldn't be so sure about it as we see him tied to a signal. And again, Tiki, I love how like, all this Batman Gordon stuff has hit me in like the perfect place during this movie here. Because Tiki, for years, I've been waiting to see a Jim Gordon, like the animated series Jim Gordon in the movies. And the closest I had was Hingle, and Hingle was an embarrassment.
Hingle was, yeah.
Nothing against Hingle personally, but he was an embarrassment. Every film got progressively worse for him. And again, when I saw his movie, I was like, finally, oh my God, they got him right.
Thank God you're here, Batman. The only time I'm ever going to interact with you is in this weird little TV thing in the Batmobile.
Yeah, I love the, but I love the pay.
Epic shot right here.
Great shot again. Batman is kind of a gargoyle perching. Yeah, Nolan did like the perching of Batman, so he made sure the suit could do that. Where it's like Batman kind of hunched over, like crouching like a gargoyle, or kind of standing in place like that. So, see, what was I getting? Oh yes. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I love that he said like, "Look for my sign," and of course, Batman kind of came up with a vague idea of like, "Hey, look for kind of a bat-shaped thing in the sky." But again, it's one symbol trumping the other one and setting up the big symbol for the end of the movie. So again, we're being very smart with our thematicism here, being very smart with kind of our structure in these places. Oh, by the way, this character here that Rachel's talking to, Finch, Carl Finch, I think, he was supposed originally in the earliest draft. This guy was supposed to be Harvey Dent.
Really?
Yes. See, what happened was, and again, this is a purely Nolan made a call, and it's so funny. Taking the entire trilogy, mainly in this one and The Dark Knight, Nolan has a choice where he could have been forward thinking, but he wasn't. And I don't mean forward thinking in a way like he didn't make any bad choice. I'm just saying he didn't plan on sequels. There's moments where he just doesn't plan on sequels because he wanted to look at this movie as he didn't want to count his chickens before they hatch.
I think the one is pretty obvious if I'm thinking of what you're thinking.
Well, my point here is, he didn't intend on doing a sequel where again he would have kept him alive. He would have kept the character alive, and he would have made him Harvey Dent to explore it in another movie. Basically, would have kind of pulled a Billy D. Williams, or hey, we're going to do this, and then he's afraid of a Billy. He might have been afraid of like a Billy D. Williams situation. Like, hey, we're going to do Two-Face, and then we never did Two-Face. That's the thing. You didn't want to say, well, what if the movie's a flop? What if no one sees the movie? And then, well, there's Harvey Dent, so we've done it yet again.
Poor Harvey Dent, always getting such a bad rep in media.
So that's the thing. So that's why he kind of made that choice early on. No, let's not plan things in the movie. Let's just tell the movie the story that we need to tell here. And again, it's an admirable choice. The choice that we need to make more in movies. But by the same token, we kind of appreciate with like kind of in the MCU era that we're living in now, where we can get away with like all these setups and pay them off. So here we have the microwave emitter. So again, some fun pseudoscience here, and again, it kind of makes sense enough. It makes sense enough that in desert warfare, if you had a device that could draw out the water supply, then you make your enemy desperate. So again, it's kind of it's borrowing from the idea of understanding your enemy that Bruce has been kind of embarking on for the whole movie. It's tied to his company, and it's again, it's kind of a fun choice. And again, the fact that, again, through somewhat corrupt means, and bear in mind, Wayne Enterprises here is not necessarily corrupt, but they're doing some shady things here and there. Like William Earl is not, he's not an evil man. He's kind of a prick. Mm-hmm. Kind of what he is. He just kind of mistreats people, and he's like covering things up. So he's a corporate executive that put things.
I don't even. Kind of like a low-grade Gordon Gekko. He's like, he wants to be Gordon Gekko, but he's bad at being Gordon Gekko.
And by the way, that's why Rucker took the role, by the way, because he just wanted to play a character he loved getting off on the power, but when he was caught, he was like, okay, I'm done. He just wanted a character that was like, okay, well, I'm caught. I can't really put up a fight. So just like when he was basically, he just wanted a character with a comeuppance that was kind of simple. That's all he wanted. He got what he wanted.
Oh man, okay, so this is my favorite Bruce Wayne bit, maybe in the whole trilogy, Dragon, the buying the hotel thing.
I'm so glad we got to do Playboy Bruce Wayne, because we really didn't do that enough in the other Batman movies. We just had Bruce Wayne as like the most eligible bachelor, but not the Playboy, and now we have some Playboy Bruce Wayne here. I'm buying this hotel. Oh, so by the way, this scene is inspired by Year One. It's inspired by the big scene where Bruce Wayne isn't in that scene, but it's the scene in Year One where all the crime bosses like the mayor, all the corrupt people in Gotham, Commissioner Loeb, Commissioner Loeb and our other characters, like others, politicians and such, are talking about like the Batman, like, oh, maybe he's helping you do your job. Like Falcone was there and saying the Batman's a menace, like all that stuff. And then of course Batman, he crashes the dinner and says, "You've eaten all of Gotham's wealth, and you've finished dining for now." And basically puts out, basically Batman's big entrance, and he basically makes a grand entrance saying crime's done in Gotham now. So they kind of, it was like this big political conversation about, is the Batman like a vigilante, or like should he be like applauded or not, like that sort of thing. A conversation
and of
about
course
Batman.
the whole conversation of like, does the Batman create its own villains, which is something we'll get into in part 2.
Yeah. So again, we're kind of borrowing that.
It's a very standalone movie, but by the same time, the DNA of this movie kind of runs through all the sequels too.
And again, we're playing a lot with the duality and kind of the two personas of Bruce Wayne and Batman. We're like, Bruce Wayne's like, oh no, the Batman's a nut. He's like, I don't support that guy. And of course, just completely, again, he jumps in the pool with his fashion model girlfriends here to again throw off all suspicion. He's playing the idiot nephew meets the billionaire playboy. Essentially, he's kind of like a little bit of both. There's like, oh, you can't take this guy seriously. His name's on the company. That's all. This guy is not smart at all. Of course, then here's the one thing I would bring up to you. This is like the one thing I noticed looking back on the movie, is that with the Rachel scenes, it was pointed out to me. I was listening to Fat Man on Batman do a commentary on Batman Begins. They pointed out something that never occurred to me. It was like, oh my god, they have a point. Where in the scene that we just saw, the great setup for the whole, it's not who I am, it's not who you are underneath, it's what you do that defines you. That whole thing. It's a great scene, by the way, where he's caught by his childhood friend. He has to kind of justify himself. I think it's like he's basically caught in the middle of his ruse, and of course, there's a cost to being Bruce Wayne. There's kind of an embarrassment to all of that. And by the same token, though, and I have to agree with Kevin Smith to a degree here, Rachel, she's kind of a buzzkill. This movie, Bruce Wayne, she really is. He's like, come on, like you've seen the guy, he disappeared for years after you hit him and everything, and you made him feel really bad for, again, like the man who killed his parents was dead. And again, it's like saying that was
shallow for me to admit that I just think Katie Holmes is inherently more attractive than Maggie Gyllenhaal.
I gotta be honest, it is a little shallow, yeah.
I'm sorry, man. Maggie Gyllenhaal's got kind of a weird squirrel face thing going on.
Well, that's really shallow. I'm gonna say you could have just let it be at that. I think now you're just going out of your way to be shallow on that one.
Well, we'll talk about Maggie Gyllenhaal and her weird squirrel face during The Dark Knight.
Well, if you want to take one thing away from Katie Holmes, she looks a little young in the movie, though. But I'm not saying it's not bad. She's maybe a little too young for him, almost.
All right.
Anyway, again, my point is, you understand what I'm saying about the buzzkill thing, right? Am I crazy about that?
I totally get what you're saying about the buzzkill thing, which is why I'm kind of like defending my whole Katie Holmes is better. Like, yeah, Katie Holmes is probably just more the type I'd go for.
I mean, to be fair, I'm not saying that the next iteration of Rachel isn't. He's a bit of a buzzkill, but in more, again, doesn't really jump out to you as much as it does here. Like, really, every time she runs into Bruce, it's like, "Hey, it's you. We have we have this wonderful past with each other, but then you did this." It's like it's always the reminder of something. It's always the buzzkill moment. Of course, oh my god, I love this scene. Right, I love it.
Classic stuff right here.
Batman Gordon scene, of course, before we're like in the office and everything, we just have this scene where I love that it gave us a glimpse of Jim Gordon's family, and we do really pay this off unintentionally, we paid this off in the next movie. And even this very scene where we're outside Gordon's house and Batman's crouched down in the position and everything here. And of course, this is Gordon placing, again, this is the sad sack Jim Gordon quality that Gary Oldman really brought to the forefront here so well. He captured this perfectly, where Gordon's a character, he wants good things for the city. He's a Batman without the means to make it happen. He is Batman, but he just doesn't have the training and the skills to be Batman. I mean, he only has so much. Like, he can be in the field only, he's a one man, versus like, he's not a symbol, which again is what kind of separates Batman from the rest there. And of course, the whole, I think you're trying to do the right thing, but I've been wrong before. Like that, but I've been wrong before. I'd say that line, Tiki, is everything like I've held true about that character in one line. Like, yes, that's Gordon right there. It's so good. Basically, him selling out Flash here for the following scene. Of course, Batman. Basically, Gordon and Batman having selling out for Flash. Of course, big idea from year one. I believe the interrogation itself is something that's from the. If it's not from Long Halloween, it might be from Dark Victory. It's from some of the. I recognize the Tim Sale art.
This is one of my favorite, outside of the obvious one from The Dark Knight. This is one of my favorite interrogations in the trilogy.
was a great one here. It's holding him upside down using the grappling gun.
I love how creative it is.
And again, Tiki, for years, you never saw an interrogation quite like this. Again, it's like the stuff I'd
That's what
seen in
I'm
the
saying,
anime.
man. It's like it really stands out. It's just like Batman is really using his fear to his advantage here.
Again, like he interrogated people left and right on Batman the Animated Series, and I'd never really seen like an Again, didn't really do enough to. Again, we have some detective-like things here with Batman, so at least we address it enough. At least we have. Again, more so in the next movie. More so in the next movie. I do like that. While it's not a really uber detective Batman, we do have like elements of the world's great. So at least Nolan covered the territory a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So of course, this is the big reason why this guy's not Harvey Dent, because he gets killed off here.
Well, at least it's a better explanation than the poor Harvey Dent on Gotham has.
It's a shame though. This guy, Larry Holden, I believe is the actor's name. I heard he passed away young. It's a shame. I believe he got sick in around 2008. I think. So that's a shame. Yeah, I thought he was okay. He was again not really a super memorable element. Because like, oh yeah, she had a boss, and again, this guy is tied to that trial scene from earlier on. So you can look to some reason why he died. Now this is not counting Mask of the Phantasm as of course you should count as a theatrical Batman film, but not amongst the live action Batman films. This again, every time I keep going through the Batman films in my mind, every time I've rewatched them, I'm like 90% certain of this, Tiki. Batman Begins was the first movie to put Batman in the rain. You've never had Batman in the rain. I don't think it's ever rained in Gotham. That's the thing. I want to say the reason I hold off at 90 is because it may have rained in Gotham, but Batman was not there. But I gotta be honest, I think it's the first time we've ever had rain in Gotham. Period. In any of the movies. Of course, those kids had a big career on Game of Thrones. I know nothing about the show, so I really can't speak to who he became in Game of Thrones. But it's that kid.
Wait, hold on. I know next to nothing about Game of Thrones, but I do know there's a bratty blonde kid who's like a king or something.
I'm pretty sure that's the same kid, Tiki. I'm pretty sure.
Like a sociopath.
I'm pretty sure that's him.
Oh, that's interesting. Joffrey.
Oh yeah, that's him. Yeah, that's the one. That's the name.
Oh man.
Let me see. What was I? Oh yeah. So two things. Of course, I love we had that Mean Joe Green Coke and a Small Moon with Batman and the kid there. We gave him the fiber optic infrared periscope.
Fans knew that was King Joffrey. They'd be like, kill him, Batman. I know it goes against your code, but trust me on this.
Yeah, two things. And again, folks, a lot's passing us by here. We're trying to keep it conversation, so forgive us if you're watching this. It's not lining up 100% here. But again, we kind of warned you at the top. I love that Batman blended into the shadows. Like the minute Crane and his men entered the fray, you saw him right before your eyes blend into the background. That's the thing. Like he's there, but he's disappearing. You like if you again you understand why they're
trope, Drake. And I hate to keep bringing back the horror movie of it all, but one of the classic tropes of horror movies is drawing your attention from the foreground into something creepy happening in the background. So like I said, out of the Batman movies, this is definitely the one to have the real horror element to it. I mean, Batman's on fire, for fuck's sake. This is metal.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. So many great things to talk about this movie. So literally, Batman's on fire. We still saw other things. Just with the rain.
Up, folks. He's literally on fire.
With the rain. By the way, with the rain, I forgot. If I ever had to pick one line from the Nolan trilogy, if I ever had to pick one line short of he does that, short of that, I think my favorite line is Jim Gordon. Is that one the start to that conversation between Gordon and Batman, where it says "Storm's coming." That moment. I love that storm, and of course we're seeing the storm unfold right here. Because thematically, storm's coming. Of course, literally, the rain is coming, giving that line more significance. Now, by the way, so of course, there's always some. Maybe it's a little bit of conjecture. I don't know. I mean, I always assumed just Nolan had seen the animated series. We have proof of this in Dark Knight Rises, to say the least. I've only seen the animated series, and of course, a lot of the Scarecrow stuff we do in this movie is based off the animated series, to my knowledge. Because of course. Scarecrow, of course, you saw this, Tiki, in the Nothing to Fear. He first came across Scarecrow. He was doused by the fear gas. He was unsuccessful. And, of course, there's a lot of fire. He was an arsonist. He kind of lit things on fire. In this case, he lit Batman on fire while he was kind of, doused with the fear gas. And we do more Scarecrow stuff in the animated series later on. Now, Real quick, just to touch on this, I don't want to forget because this is important now. We've been requested to talk about something with this.
Oh, okay, okay.
Bear in mind, folks, if anyone's commenting right now, we're focused on the movie right now, but before we got started, someone asked us to talk about the Scarecrow. There's a question of, if the Scarecrow, if you took the Scarecrow out of this movie, what would change? Like, do you need Scarecrow in this movie?
Well, I think you need Scarecrow in the movie, because like he's definitely a good counterpoint to Batman with the fear element of it all.
Certainly.
And more importantly, you need the fear toxin. The fear toxin is a pivotal part of the movie. If you're going to do the fear toxin, you need Jonathan Crane.
Yes, and more. I mean, you could always make the counter argument of like, well, if he has the blue flowers, but then here's what would happen if you just said, okay, Rachel Gould and the League of Assassins are using the blue flower. You'll say, okay, well, that alludes to fear gas, and I guess you're just David Goyer or Nolan. Again, might be Goyer. Who's again, no, the guy remember Goyer's really in the corner for getting us a lot of the comic book stuff realized, a lot of like the deep cuts, kind of like the referential stuff, like in the year one homages and such. You would just say, well, if you're going to do fear gas, why not do Scarecrow? And of course, like, well, that's why we have Scarecrow. If we can't just do fear gas through a different villain, we have to do Scarecrow if we're doing fear gas. It's the signature.
Yeah, and I also like that Scarecrow is very much the first real taste we get of a Christopher Nolan villain who's going to be, for all intents and purposes, Nolanized. Because that's the thing. With Ra's al Ghul, there's kind of like a built-in supernatural quality to him, and there's not that much that's changed about Ra's al Ghul, outside of the fact that we never see the Lazarus Pit. That's really the one thing where it's like, but with specifically the way I feel like the way that we did the Scarecrow in this movie, which was the Scarecrow, of course, being an iconic, popular Batman villain with a big gimmick and everything, the way that we do him through just, it's literally a guy with a fucking sack on his face. Like,
which, by the way,
more than that.
Goyer fought for that.
Like, that sort of like bare bone simplicity really paved the way for the Joker. I feel like that's an important evolution in the way that Nolan did his villains.
So Scarecrow, David Goyer really fought for the Scarecrow mask because Nolan didn't want to do it, and he said, "No, you have to do the mask. Yeah, you got to do the Scarecrow mask." But I love they gave it a logic to it. Again, Nolan at least added a logic to it where essentially it works as like a rebreather. It's something that shields him from the fear gas, and also like he has a device up his sleeve or in his briefcase that deploys the fear toxin. And the mask kind of filters him and kind of changes his voice, so it can basically it's a stimuli for who's at basically to make someone directly. They see gas, they're essentially their adrenaline's pumping, then they see this scary bag head that's this scary with a deep altered voice, just kind of scaring somebody. So it's like, oh my god, they're freaking out and such. So again, the mask does serve a very good purpose, and again has like that psychological element to it. So at least there's a justification for the mask where before we didn't. Like the hangman's noose that's just like a fun little extra treat. There is like this rope tied around his neck, so that's just a cool touch. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, by the way, that the previous scene where Rachel was yet again another buzzkill there, where she's saying, "Well, Bruce, some of us have things to do."
Oh man.
Again, it's like that's the thing. It's like you can't really take any knocks at the movie. That's like the one observation that I was like told, like, "Oh my god, he's got a boy." Yeah, Rachel is kind of the buzzkill, but I believe they shot that the birthday party, like at least the beginning of that scene, the whole Finders Keeper payoff with the arrowhead. You see like this giant 30 in the background. It is Bruce's. I think it was actually Christian Bale's 30th birthday party while they were shooting that. Coincidentally,
nice.
I think that might be why they went with the number 30. I think I'm not entirely sure if it's just like because traditionally Batman in the pre-Robin years is like 30. Like Batman the animated series, that Batman is in his 30s. Tiki like year one's like 25-year-old Batman. Classic Batman's 30. Again, they go by the Jesus years essentially. Age 30 is in your savior years essentially. That's kind of the old adage in comics with Batman. It's like age, it's 30. The child of the 30, and of course, old man like Dark Knight Returns. It's kind of not important. So yeah, so again, we go to Arkham Asylum, and a very again not a theatrical Arkham Asylum. Of course, a movie about theatricality and deception. I should rephrase that, but it's a very it's not Arkham Asylum. We play it as a dingy, really creepy, almost not Victorian, but it's like borders on like modern day Victorian. You know, it's kind of this. It's a rundown building with a really. It has like a Victorian elevator. That's why I'm going with the whole Victorian thing. It's like it's very gated. It's very like the horror is before you, but you feel barely protected in Arkham Asylum.
Right, as
Yeah.
it should be.
Also, I love this, by the way. I completely forgot about this while we're kind of seeing it in practice here. I love Batman's on the outside of the asylum, and he's using the bat ears. What he's done is he's put a listening device in the ears, therefore justifying with this very practical Batman, this very believable Nolanized Batman. We've justified why Batman has bat ears, aside from just the visage of it all. It's like there's actually they house like that's how it's like again. Bear in mind, this is before the Arkham games. This is before we have just kind of Batman like touching the ear and you kind of like activating the technology. I think we may have gotten that in other things, but it really became popular with the Arkham games. So that's the thing. We're kind of doing that here predominantly before that. And of course, by the way, we don't have the Arkham games. I'm sorry, I should save that for when we get to the next movie. Let me
all right.
Strike that from the record. I'll strike that from the record. But okay, this idea right here, the inmates, basically pouring fear toxin into Gotham's water supply. Now, Tiki, you saw this. This was in the animated series, Dreams in Darkness. This whole idea of under Arkham Asylum, in the kind of cavernous side of the Arkham Asylum.
We poison the water supply.
God, poison. Sorry, it's wrong. Third movie there. Okay. So I love that we've justified, we have solid life and death stakes here with her being overdosed with fear toxin and terrified out of her gourd. We've justified putting Rachel in a Vicky Vale situation without it feeling like, okay, damsel in distress. It feels more justified than it's ever been. I will say, however, again, the only other knock I'd attach to the whole like she's kind of a buzzkill is that really what was she thinking going there alone? If you know your guy's up to shady stuff, why wouldn't you bring?
You're absolutely right, Dragon. I was thinking that at the same point watching this.
Yeah, there's only so much you can say against the movie, folks. Those are like the little things that pop
one
up.
Of those things where it's like at a certain point in superhero movies, characters put a little bit too much stock on the hero being there to save them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. She doesn't
even know that might be a symptom that we have going on right here.
Somewhat, yeah. Honestly, I just think she didn't think it through. I think she was. I gotta be honest. Like she only met Batman once. It's like he just says, "Here's your leverage." Like she's putting a lot of stake. Like Batman will save me again. She's another guy's name.
Saying, yeah, it's just like it's a little, especially because Nolan wants us to buy the realism. But again, folks, we're literally like we're looking for holes to pick at with this thing.
So, by the way, I love Cillian Murphy had my favorite moment of him in the movie just now, where the delivery that sells me, okay, this guy's perfect for Jonathan Crane. Yeah, don't know, he'd been great up to this point. He has like a line that sounds like, yeah, that's Scarecrow, where he said the way he sold the line, the look on is more so the look on his face when he knows that Batman's in the room and he had his mask off for a second and he looked up and he had that smile, that intrigue of fear on his face, where he said, saying, what was that? It's the Batman.
I
Well,
remember that was like a good trailer moment.
And of course, he said, like, what do we do? Whatever you do when there's a prowler about, call the police. Like that line right there. That's to me. That's a Scarecrow moment of the whole movie for me. Like, yeah, it's great.
Okay, here we go. Evil Batman Dragon. I like not literally, of course.
Demon. It's Demon Batman.
On a figurative level, seeing this in the movie theater, Dragon.
This
was Batman. Fucking terrifying.
And again, Tiki, this is an idea directly from the animated series, where at the end of the mirror, Jonathan Crane was doused with his own fear toxin at the very end of Nothing to Fear, and he was hallucinating of the demon Batman. That's where they pulled that from. Now,
yeah, I just like the way he has that black ooze like kind of dripping out of his mouth. It's so disquieting.
Dr. Crane's not in right now. Can I take a message? Guys, just Crane's scared out of his gore with like the giant bat guy staring right at him. It is quite terrifying. And again, it's like that's Nolan pushed to pushing it in just the right way. Just pushing believability in just the right way. If he's hallucinating, absolutely he would see that. Because again, the guy's dressed like a giant bat. It's like the fear toxin I feel is based on an extrapolation of what is before you. So you're seeing something before you.
He does a really, really good job of illustrating that, like through various means, through the mask, through Batman. Later on, we're going to see the townspeople reacting to seeing Batman flying, and it's going to be another horrific moment.
Course, and I think you could read into it that fear as an idea is like it's like what we don't again the whole fear you fear is something you don't understand. You can't you fear what you don't understand. That's what Falcone said earlier on. We're kind of seeing that in practice. You don't quite understand what you're seeing before you, so your mind is like racing before you actually put the logic together. But the fear gas essentially delays that realization of what you see before you. That's my guess, kind of the pseudoscience of the fear gas and kind of thematicism with the whole fear understanding element of it all. So this is great. Gordon's working with Batman. By the way, I completely forgot to mention this Ray Show. Did you know that Gary Oldman, he came in to read to audition for Ray Show?
No, I didn't.
And the fun fact is that Gary Oldman had never again. Neeson played his first villain with this movie, and Gary Oldman played his first hero with this movie. His first likable. He always played villains before this movie. That's the fun element. All there, and Gary Oldman
played Sirius Black, who was kind of like he was supposed to be a villain, but then he turned out to be a good guy.
Well, predominantly villainous characters. Yeah. So, by the way, Gary Oldman, he kind of fascinates me with this because Gary Oldman, again, he's fitting into the Donner casting team. We get big name actors surrounding Batman, like Gary Oldman and Rutger Hauer, and we have Liam Neeson. We have all these huge names around, kind of our newcomer Christian Bale. And Gary once said Gordon was not a challenging role for him. I think it's a testament to how good an actor he is. Where he wasn't even trying with Gordon, but he delivered the most perfect performance of that character I've ever seen.
I mean, absolutely. Like, if not visually, just visually, he just leaps off the page. It's like, you see that, Ben McKenzie? This is how you do it. This is how you do the mustache.
Of course, we're not counting.
It's taken you 4 years, and all we've gotten is a cameo of the Batman of the Gordon mustache.
That is true. Okay, and then of course the whole the bat call device in Batman's boot is a huge moment from year one. You saw it in the animated movie and in the comic. And by the way, so this is fun. This shot of Batman landing right here, very possibly digital. Like when he's walking through the bats right there. What they did is they tried real bats for all this. Again, Nolan loves practical, and again, like 2 weeks ago, like, oh my god, how much more practical can you get?
This is another iconic moment, by the way. The hallway with the bats, I love it.
He tried to film this with real bats, God love them, and of course they realized, okay, this is not working because it's hard to control bats. Of course, you had the bat guano situations. There was a lot of issues with the bats. And what they did is, they did this digital test to sell you on the bats, and of course, and this is the big thing we had teased up in the opening, all these bats swarming around to make the bat logo, which is at the very top of the movie. A little foreshadow what's in the movie. And there's actually a shot. Now, I don't know if they used this in the final shot, but they had a shot just to test it out. They had bats flown around, and they had a digital recreation of Christian Bale as Batman in the suit when he landed and walked. Because, again, they can only do the land. Basically, it's very possible that when he lands all in one shot and then he walks off, it's very possible that was all digital Batman. That was so seamless. It just sold you.
Man. Oh, I would have never guessed.
I'm saying they had like a side to side where you can, unless you know you're looking. I'm saying it's so hard to tell. That's why I can't verify if what they used in the final edit there. I just know they made that test.
That's like on the same level of like the Social Network twins, where it's like it's technically a CG effect the whole time, but you wouldn't know unless you were looking for it.
All right, so real quick, I love the setup and payoff of Gordon having that perfect car commercial line almost of "I gotta get me one of those." Like take my car, I'm taking mine, yours. So this is the most kind of blockbuster, kind of popcorn, kind of summer blockbuster moment of the whole movie.
Yeah, I got to admit, Dragon, this might be my least favorite segment in the movie.
You know what's so funny, Tiki? One of my favorite moments in the movie is at the very end of this. Let me build to it a little here. Okay. So the Tumblr in itself. So the Tumblr, by the little fun facts about the Tumblr, they're fascinating.
I mean, this scene is cool. It's just like it's a little bit superfluous, and it's a little bit like, all right, we got to have a car chase, and Nolan doesn't know how to do car chases yet. Of course, Nolan's gonna fucking perfect the car chase in the next movie. My God. Are we going to see a complete turnaround on how good the car chase is in the next movie?
Well, that's true, but I got to tell you, I still like this car chase, though.
Okay. I mean, I don't hate it. I'm just saying, like, in terms of, like, there's a lot of close-ups on the vehicles. It doesn't really feel like You get a great sense of place. It's not the best shot.
I mean, let me say this. So first off, I want to shout this out here. The Tumbler actually was built from scratch. As in, this is a Tiki. This vehicle is 80% functional. As in, I say 80%. I mean, honestly, if you want to be technical, I mean, if you're being technical, it's 80%. It's actually like it does practically 90% of what you see before you. So the car was built from scratch. It actually, it moves, it turns.
Some of that functionality is the fact that you couldn't just take this out on the road and not expect to be completely pulled over.
What I mean is like a lot of Batmobiles, they can only go like a certain speed. Like everything you see before you, like this thing can actually go up to roughly 100 miles per hour. It can do the turn. Honestly it can land. It can't make the jump, but it actually can land the jump though. That's the fascinating thing. The thing is really durable. It's I say 80% because basically the inside, there's no inside to the car. Like the inside you see, it's a different. It's like they cut the vehicle in half and they shoot Batman and Rachel in the in a different set. But that's where like mainly that's 10%. The other 10% is like again it can't make the jump all in one shot, but it can make the landing. But again, it's a fully functional car. They made like I believe between 5 and 7 of the I think it's 7 vehicles in total that they made. Again, one of them being like the half shell. Then it's again I think it's really impressive. So they built it from scratch in Nolan's garage essentially. Like I said before, too, in the studio, they wanted the Batmobile in there. So you get a sense this is kind of like the best version of like when Joss Whedon had to work in that Thor scene in Age of Ultron. It's like the best version of like, well, we have to do this for the studio, but yeah, I think he did the best he could with it.
Yeah, I hate to say it, Dragon, but I'm glitching a little. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. What's your countdown timestamp right now?
The countdown is 43:16.
43:16. Okay. Hold on.
Anyway,
let me know when you get to 41. Okay, just 4100.
I'll let you know. So here's what I really like about the Tumbler as a whole. I love how the sequences.
First of all, I love how it's like thank God this movie came out before Tumblr was a thing, or else everyone would be making tons of jokes about that.
Sure. So this is my favorite moment of the score. This is Molasses, by the way. This is like the score that we have echoed in the trilogy. But this is my favorite right here when he's Rachel, and he jumps through the waterfall. Which again, that waterfall jump is 100% practical. So all of that is all that's great. But I love the intensity and the urgency within that whole Tumbler chase. So it's less the like I know like. The whole like the logistics of like why can't Batman just like it's his first year on the job and he's just he's figuring it out, so he's not quite again like he's not making like a clear cut getaway as he would in the Batmobile at this point. It's not 89. It's just, he can't just drive into like the Batcave quite yet. We got to see him go through it. I guess be the logic. You want just 41 on the dot, right? But that's very true. But I mean, yeah, I love the intensity behind all of that and the fact that Rachel's in genuine.
You didn't say it was 40 on the dot, did you?
You said you want it 41 on the dot, right?
Yeah, 4100. Yeah.
I'll let you know. It's not yet.
Okay. Just checking.
So, but I mean, yeah, I love the intensity. I love the score. I love the payoff of that whole sequence, and I just love how it kind of keeps. I love the energy behind that scene. I think the car chase. It's kind of an action set piece. It's a crowd pleaser. I think it's like it's kind of fun. Not as cerebral as the rest of the film, but it's definitely fun.
I mean, ironically though, Dragon, it was one of those moments where I felt like the fans of the more cerebral elements like myself kind of can point to it and be like, yeah, that wasn't one of the better parts of the movie.
Right now.
Okay. I don't know. It's kind of like a snake eating its own tail sort of situation. You know what I mean? It's like we have to have a scene like that in there, but by the same token, it's just kind of like the more interesting stuff in the movie, the character building stuff, the origin stuff is all so much more interesting.
And again, look, at the end of the day, I'd make the argument that again, it's saving Rachel. That's kind of the undercurrent. So there is character within that scene, but I get your point though. I do like though that again, opposed to later car chases in the Batmobile, where there's proper damage. At least we acknowledge that everybody survived this one, compared to other more embarrassing. Again, seriously, like this one, at the end of the day, I'm going to take this.
Dragon, speaking of which, like, I am shocked that Man of Steel hasn't been referenced yet in this podcast, but because my God, did Man of Steel try and fail to do what this movie did for Batman with Superman?
Well, I think more so. Yeah, Returns literally tried to do what this did, and that was
no. Returns was more of a pseudo sequel, if anything. Batman, a Man of Steel was like, oh, let's tell the origin, but let's tell it in an interesting way. And
let me take back I think you're absolutely right, Tiki. Sorry. Yes, yeah, you're right, man.
You know what I mean? Like, kind of like let's kind of splice the movie up and kind of tell it out of order. All right, so Alfred, I love his concern for the Wayne family name. God damn, that's some of the best stuff, and it carries over through the whole trilogy, and it's really touching on his part.
So there was this deleted joke in this scene here. I think it was in the script. I don't know if they ever shot this, but they were flirting around with finally addressing this thing we still have never addressed in any of the Batman movies. The eye makeup under the mask. Like he was supposed to basically after taking the mask off, because we saw the behind shot of that where he basically, when Rachel was inoculated, he took the mask off and we saw him from behind. The idea was he had like raccoon eyes essentially. And when he walked up, Alfred said he gave him tossed him like a handkerchief or something to wipe the stuff away.
Uh-huh.
So according to this scene here with Alfred and Rachel, you don't get away with this thing today, I'm afraid.
Oh God.
I'm afraid so. Yeah.
The funny thing is, though, I think Michael Caine sells it for what it is at the very.
He does, though. That's the thing. I always when I saw this the first time, I was like, I don't quite get the joke, because he seems really sincere and I trust him. That's the thing. It's like I get what they're going for. It's like, it's still, I don't know, quite lands the way they think it will. But yeah, seriously, I love that Alfred, the big debate, the whole defending the Wayne name, all of that. So basically, there's a balance of Bruce Wayne's name and becoming a symbol, and Bruce is taken away by becoming a symbol. And Alfred, he won't abide thrill seeking. And again, the whole zero casualties thing, which again I do like that we acknowledge that versus like something like Batman v Superman, where again we my most painful moment as a Batman fan is that scene, by the way, in Batman v Superman. I got to tell you, like the moment that short of an animated moment, which again I don't want to get into right now, but
oh yeah,
sort of in live action, the moment that made me most crestfallen I've ever been at Batman was when he was driving through people in the Batmobile in Batman v Superman. It's like that legitimately made me sad in the theater. If I ever had to bring it down to one moment, like my big moment, I'd be like, no, what's that? But yeah, I mean, I like that Alfred's kind of calling him. Like, yeah, you were kind of reckless out there. What is this? You're pancaking cop cars. What are you doing? But again, we're addressing these issues. So I think we're at least buying back some of kind of our it's kind of it might be Nolan's commentary on the on kind of the summer action blockbuster. Like, yeah, we had to address that. And again, years later, we see another attempt at that, and we dropped the ball on it entirely. But all that said, let's talk about the big moment. Here's a big moment for me. When
the M. Night Shyamalan senses are tingling.
Like, this is I don't want to throw shade here. I'm just saying this is a far more well-received version of a Mandarin twist. I say well-received, not
more well-received. Well,
I say that's the thing. I say well-received. It's a different beast entirely. I'm just saying it's like a comparison. Like, it is kind of a Mandarin twist, but again,
you're right. It is kind of it's a Mandarin twist where the end result is more satisfactory than the road leading up to it, which the Mandarin was kind of like the road leading up to it was better than the end result.
Basically, the Mandarin thing is a smart it's an idea, and it's a smart idea, but again, maybe it's not satisfying in the grand whole, but the point is, here you have both. Here you have it where it's like it's a smart idea, and you're satisfied with the result. Like, okay, yeah, he was he was a better actor for Ra's al Ghul. I mean, it was a more Ra's al Ghul-esque portrayal anyway, and we're doing more with him, so that makes sense. I'm satisfied with that. Not only that, it's a good idea. We have both kind of forms of race, and we kind of had our cake and we ate it too. So again, Neeson's performance in this scene and following this again is absolutely. Well, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. We're having like the fun drunken toast here from Bruce Wayne.
It's not necessarily fun, Dragon. This is actually one of the more melancholy scenes in the movie for me.
It is.
I mean, while he is kind of hamming it up, it's him doing exactly what Alfred didn't want him to do, and he knows that he doesn't have to
Right.
do this. But I'm sorry, what?
No, no, you're right. Go on.
Yeah. He knows he doesn't have to do it, but it's one of those things where it's like he knows that he's destroying the Wayne name, but maybe that's for the greater good. Maybe that's for the good of the mission.
Yeah, he saved. I think I say fun in the fact that he's acting like a drunken billionaire to save people's lives in Wayne
Uh-huh.
Manor. And it is a quite a heroic thing here. And of course, now, let me address the ratio a little bit here. So again, the race reveal I felt was perfect. And again, like that viewing of like that was like my moment of like, yes, he is perfect for when I sat down to watch the movie. When I sat down to watch the movie all the way through for the first time, I was like, oh my god, yes, because I was thinking that one little viewing of like this got to be perfect for racial. Then I sat down and watched the movie like, oh my god, it went somewhere. Yes, hooray! And of course we have the perfect line because when we have a Ra's al Ghul who's wearing like the classic green comic suit and everything, it's like yeah, it's a great homage to Ra's al Ghul. And then of course that turn with that Neeson with the facial hair and everything looks just like Ra's al Ghul. He sounded like Ra's al Ghul. He sounds like the David Warner Ra's al Ghul I grew up with, and he just has that perfect line that sums up. But he's Ra's al Ghul. I saw him die, but he's Ra's al Ghul immortal,
Uh-huh.
or are his methods supernatural? And of course Bruce is that perfect line. Or cheap parlor tricks. Again, that's great. And again, Nolan addressing, again, in the grand scheme of things, we kind of hint at here, and you kind of feel it here, and we confirm it years down the line. But Nolan kept it vague whether Ra's had survived 600 years or not. I like that. I respect that he kept it vague. So you kind of have your Nolan kind of approach with things, but you also have like the acknowledgement in a satisfying way of like, the idea is still there, and he kind of sells it like he is 600 years old. So you kind of cover all bases there.
Sure.
Right. And again, this whole scene here, and again, the charm of Neeson here is that the way this scene goes, the way it goes by the end here, where Bruce is like saying like don't do this. He's trying to have a real smart intellectual argument here of like Gotham can still be saved. We're saying no, Gotham's days have passed, and we've sacked Rome, we've done all this stuff, we've destroyed things to build them up better than before. Well, we did it, and basically he exposits the plan, what he's done here. It's a
very
really fast
Ozymandias type villain plot, Dragon.
And again, Thanos before we have Thanos, folks. With Ra's al Ghul,
Uh-huh.
very directly here, where we have the idea. He tried the half measure of the depression. He tried afflicting Gotham with a depression, but then Bruce's parents got in the way. And again, I love this, Tegan. I love how all of our villain plots. This is the big reveal that ties all of our villain plots together so seamlessly and so brilliantly. Tiki is that it revealed using Gotham's depression. It revealed Gotham's true nature, and revealing Gotham's true nature, providing the desperation of criminals. Men and women like Bruce's parents were taken down. They were killed by the desperate criminal element that again had been perpetuated by the corrupt people like Falcone, and of course Ra's used this to his advantage to take Gotham down through its own corruption. Like you strike the right deals with the right people, use people like Scarecrow to get the toxin to basically bring out Gotham's true nature, bring out the fear and the desperation that they've evoked, and just make it literalized and have Gotham tear itself apart with fear. That's a brilliant plan. And again, connects everything back even down to Joe Chill without it having been like a giant conspiracy plot of like, no, I secretly hired this guy who hired this guy who hired Joe Chill to kill your parents.
Exactly. Thank
God. And I lured you to my side. Like it wasn't any of that. It
was Dragon, that's what Gotham was there for.
Yes, and again, Gotham, at least they were passable with that. But at the same time, though, again, here this was very seamless. It was it just worked so well here.
Look, I don't mean to be throwing so much shade on Gotham, all right? Gotham's actually a fantastic show for what it is. And
like, again, I like what they did with, I mean, we're kind of throwing shade at. I like what they did, but it's a very different beast than what this was. That's the point. I'm saying what they did with the Ra's al Ghul stuff. They did
right.
A very different route. They went more the route I was saying they didn't go here. But again, at least they made it work the best they. It's not important. Basically, again, the Thanos of it all here with Ra's son here is like he's offering. Again, he wants to heal Gotham by starting over again, but there's always that divide. And again, the divide of the appeal of Ra's al Ghul is that they want the same things. And again, he's offering like, I want you standing by my side. Don't make me do this. It's Ra's al Ghul always offering Batman that second chance. Like, hey, I like you. I want you to join my side. You're that surrogate. I can be that surrogate father figure. I can give you everything you've ever wanted. I want you to join my side. You're the most worthy, well-trained warrior I know. You're the guy. Again, Ra's al Ghul's always seen Bruce Wayne as the proper heir to his throne. It's like, hey, you can do this with me. Why won't you do this? And he's like, no, I'm not gonna kill people to start over. It's like, there are good people. We can't just believe in absolutes. And of course, that's where the divide comes in.
Oh yeah.
We have that great line before Alfred's awesome fire brigade rescue here. I love that line. Brace's last line to Bruce Wayne's like when he thinks Bruce is going to die here, he says, you stab, you find somebody, you stab them in the heart. And that great line about you walk up behind somebody and you stab them in the heart. It's like a great line, of course, setting up that he's about to be killed. And of course, they call us even because you burned down my house. Now I burned down yours. Like it's this balance of justice idea, justice, leading to balance. Like you believe in justice, and he believes in balancing the world. And in balancing the world, it's like, well, again, in saving a life, you've cemented that same. You're going to balance the good in this world out with evil, and of course, an idea that we definitely explored in the other movies. Again, if we have like a form of justice, something has to meet it. Something horrible has to balance that out. Like you can't do a good thing without something bad following it. Alfred rescuing Bruce.
I love this role reversal here, where Bruce is beating himself up about the mansion. He's like, "It's the Wayne legacy is more than mortar and bricks, sir."
As he sees the bleeding Bruce Wayne, the young boy that he raised, just bleeding on the ground. Basically, this is Alfred feeling bad for what he said before. Like, I did kind of let him have it here, and realized that no, I put too much emphasis on what Bruce Wayne, what his name stands for, than Bruce Wayne himself. And he has the perfect line to call that back and buy that back. Possibly one of the greatest Alfred moments in all of film. Possibly, quite possibly, is one of the great moments. Why do we fall? Just that callback of why do we fall, again, cementing Alfred as the father figure.
Okay, important for Flass here. This is a big kind of. It's not necessarily the same moment as year one, but it's very much kind of like Flass getting brutal with the public.
Sure. And of course, ultimately we have like a moment where, Gordon kind of gets, he doesn't really get to beat him up like awesomely like he did in year one. But
unfortunately.
We don't have time for that. You understand it. Look, I'd love to see that movie, but, Gary Oldman has places to be. But I love this, though. We had an earlier scene in the back here where basically it set this scene up that we're seeing here where Rachel was given 2 antidotes, one for herself and one for Gordon. And I love that she said, Lieutenant Gordon's Sergeant Gordon's your friend. Says, I don't have the luxury of friends. That's like Batman saying, yeah. It's basically his way of, that's like, yeah, Batman, he's your friend.
It's like, come on, Batman, just say it.
It's adorable. It's like, I don't have the luxury of friends. But like, if I had a friend, I would like it to be him, but I don't have the luxury of friends. Like, oh, ain't that cute?
It's like Batman. It's kind of like a dark cop line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
Power Kid's just like, but you got me, dude. Well, you would be considered a roommate. I find that insulting.
Before I forget about it, I mentioned that Nolan had built like the Nathan Crowley in Nolan's garage built this awesome scale model of Gotham, which again you do see in shots of the movie, and specifically in the third act, there's like a bigger model they used to do a big effect really practically. But I love that stylistically, what they did is they shot sound stages in London, like pieces of the Narrows is shot on a sound stage. Like when he was interrogating Flass and when he was in the building with Crane, that's a sound stage in London, the big sound stage, Carrington, I think. And when they shoot certain shots with Gordon, when we show Gotham, it was kind of broadly Gotham and Chicago. And of course, we're going to do a lot more of that in the next movie.
Of course,
the next movie. And stylistically, the Narrows, the place we're at now, is inspired by kind of the lower. It's not. I don't know if it's necessarily the Lower East Side, but it's kind of the lower, more downtrodden side of Hong Kong. Basically, in Hong Kong, which again, another place that we do visit in the trilogy, you do see kind of this crime ring, kind of this very, if not crime ring, this very many times it's always rained in this section of Hong Kong. It's very kind of marketplacey. It's kind of like lumping a building upon building, very Blade Runner-esque in a natural setting. It's very much kind of what this, like a certain section of Hong Kong is that pretty much is what the Narrows is entirely based on. Very interesting. Again, all these elements combined together, you get a really fully fleshed out, again, very stylistic Gotham, I gotta say. Again, it's like it's a gritty version of Gotham, but not necessarily like we're used to like an Art Deco
This
version
is
of
also
Gotham.
one of the reasons that I feel like it kind of differentiates itself from the rest of the trilogy is that, frankly, the rest of the trilogy, like, don't get me wrong, Chicago and IMAX looks fucking awesome, but it doesn't have the same kind of character as this Gotham has of, the sound stages that make up the Narrows. I really feel like we get more physical and nitty gritty with this Gotham than we do in the other movies.
I like that each Gotham kind of has like a kind of a fun, expanded look, though. I do like that we get to see
Uh-huh.
more of it. That's kind of neat. Okay, so one thing here, I love that Gordon's asking for help, and he's saying, you're all the riot police are there with you. There is no one else we can send. Enter Batman, and Batman making an entrance here, even in his early formative years here. Okay, so this image with Scarecrow on horseback is taken directly from the Long Halloween.
Oh yeah.
Scarecrow on horseback. It was from I believe, they had Scarecrow was in the Mother's Day because the Long Halloween's all that holiday. So he had Mother's Day where it ends on Bruce Wayne on fear gas, like at his mother's grave. So, so again, of course, here we have the Batman Gordon team up here. It's like, yes, this is all great here. And the fact that Tiki, it warms my heart to no end. And this is the things that, again, there is absolutely an argument to be made between Batman Begins and Dark Knight. We'll get more of that when we get to the next movie, obviously. But with Batman Begins, though, I mean, all this Gordon Batman stuff is like some of my favorite stuff in all the Nolan movies. I got to tell you, it's really, and the fact that Jim Gordon gets to be very proactive in the third, again, after years of watching Batman movies, like, I've been dying to see Gordon, like, again, Gordon just needs to be in like a very, basically the elements that we.
Incredibly proactive in all the third acts of the movies, really.
He is, absolutely, he is. And I love that because again, usually you don't necessarily need to do that with Jim Gordon. Again, I'm the animated series what I'm so used to with Gordon. It's like I just need him to show up once and again. I'm happy. That's the thing. He just shows up and he does his thing.
That's
and
pretty much the barometer for animated series. It's like if he shows up twice, that's a damn good episode.
But again, he's there and he's helping out. And he's helping out in the way a lot. Logistically, he can help out. And here he's like rising to the occasion even more so. We're giving Gordon more to do, and he gets to drive the tumbler. He's like, "Gotta get me one of those." He gets his wish. He gets to drive the tumbler,
and he doesn't have to wait till the next movie and a change of actors like War Machine.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, by the way, I do like this. So Victor Zsasz, of course, the very same Victor Zsasz from.
Yes.
Yeah, we did work him in there, and again, the idea is he was like a mob enforcer, like the really weird kind of signature that he carved the scars on himself here. Again, so funny that traditionally Victor Zsasz is not a mob enforcer, but Gotham had done that, but as had this movie before Gotham. So funny enough. Only he wasn't crazy here; he's just crazy in Gotham. The point is. I do like that we had this moment where he kind of paid off Victor Zsasz a touch. It's like a little cameo villain where he's going towards Rachel and Batman takes him down after. I do like that. My logic, Teak, is that Rachel tasered Scarecrow in the face. In doing so, she shorted out, like she broke his mask. And breaking his mask, he was exposed to his fear gas yet again. That's why it's like, ah! He's just screaming as he's being off by the horse. That's my logic on it. So this is, of course, right before Batman swinging into the big third act of it all here. I thought it was a really great moment here where he kind of gives Rachel that clue to who he is. So you could die, and of course you care about Rachel. And we set up Rachel as the childhood friend. If he's going to tell anyone, again, you think, okay, Batman has to tell the girl of the movie who he is. We finally justified that after a long time why he would do that.
So we just passed over one of my favorite uses of the fear toxin, which was when Batman was flying over everyone, and it's like a giant fucking bat monster.
Sure. And of course, I'll save that for later on when we pay that idea off even more so. Of course, we have that now. It's not who I'm underneath. What I do.
It's what I do that defines me.
Bruce? It's like, that's a great line.
This on do.
I gotta tell you, Tiki, I'm giving a little too much credit here. Bear in mind, it's Nolan movies. It's maybe not as much credit as I think I'm giving it here, but I do like that. I gotta tell you, it kind of reminds me a little bit of a moment from Phantasm. Where Andrea Beaumont sees Batman at the grave and he leaves as Bruce. It's kind of one of those moments. I don't know. Yeah, nice. So of course, I look how we parallel the action. We see what Gordon and Batman's doing during all of this. Again, Batman's like, you think I can't take two of your pawns, as he's fighting the League, so he doesn't have to fight him later, which is clever. I love Raish's line. Again, this is a classic Raish Al Ghul line here where he says, I see you took my advice about theatricality literally. Just
Yeah.
making fun of the Bat gimmick because he hadn't seen him in the costume up to this point. It's like, okay, I see what he's the get up, and of course he took the he took the gauntlets from the League of Shadows. It's kind of funny. But right here, this whole thing of Batman being all this beautiful, horrific shot here, like Batman being dragged down by the insane Gothamites on.
Oh yeah, you're right.
You're right.
We do get a lot more of this. Yeah. I'm sorry. I kind of jumped the gun on that a little bit.
I mean, you saw the overhead shot. You don't see that overhead shot again, so I guess. Anyway, the point is that shot, like they're all like clamoring onto him, right? Like that. It's from Nothing to Fear. Remember the everyone at the party's under the fear gas, and they see Batman as a bat monster, and they all attack him. And that's where they again pulling it from that. So I love this Gordon driving.
He's led to some surprisingly horrifying moments.
Very true. And I gotta tell, look, I don't have a problem with this, but I've heard people gripe about it just to address it. The whole Mr. Exposition at Wayne Tower here.
Okay.
This guy was saying the guy basically spelling out that if that train gets here, it's gonna,
I don't mind it.
I don't mind it either. I'm just saying, it's like I keep hearing people make fun of that. It's like, come on, it's like what's the harm?
It's like it's a movie. We need exposition. If movies didn't have exposition, we'd be in a very bad place.
I do like how Raish is kind of, I don't know how intentional it is, but I like how Raish is kind of driving the knife in there deep here, where he's using the very train that summarized all the good that the Wayne family was doing, all the fond memories that Bruce had with his father, and he's using that to basically, again, I love the logic here. The microwave emitter is, again, the fear toxins in the water supply underneath all of Gotham. So basically, as this activated microwave emitter is on the train passes through all of Gotham, and when it gets to Wayne Towers, that means it goes to everywhere. And as it passes over the water source turns into an aerosol, and as the aerosol, it infects people with the fear toxin. So I love that. That's the logic of why we're on this train here, and again, that's kind of why we have this whole action sequence. And Gordon's the only hope of like stopping this train from reaching Wayne Tower. So again, it's all really relative and all makes sense. And we have that dramatic context of like it's the symbol of Bruce wanting to help Gotham and like a tie to the Wayne family. All this makes a lot of sense. And he's Raish using the irony of, I'm going to use the thing you wanted to save Gotham, and I'll use it to destroy Gotham. Well, very, very relative and clever. Of course, here we have a really good action sequence here, and again, we pay off the training sequence from Act 1 with Raish and Batman here.
Of course.
Yeah. And of course, using your surroundings, and I love this, Teague. I love that the playing field is on. Bruce has the home field advantage here because again, minding his surroundings. Now Bruce is in Gotham. He's on the train, the very surrounding that we saw him as a boy on at the very beginning. Again, he's using those surroundings. Like the very beginning of this fight, he was like climbing over everything. He's using it to his advantage. He's on his own home. He's on his own home turf. So I like that the advantage is in Bruce's favor there. And again, this is a creepy callback. I don't know if you noticed.
Don't be afraid. Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Again, the father figure thing. That has to be intentional with a line like that. Tiki.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Don't be afraid. You're just. The fact of like, hey, you're like in your last moments, don't be afraid. And he's saying it in a comforting way too. It's just kind of like a mocking or comforting way. It's kind of unclear, but I like you can kind of interpret it both ways. I'm not going to stop the train. And of course, like this is all take all of this, like the model.
I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you.
Well, I mean this here. You never learn to mind your surroundings. But also all this collapsing stuff here, but more so when the train wrecks. Yeah, big model though.
Nice.
The big model, but it's all built in the garage. And again, I love the whole have you learned to do what is necessary. Again, Raish is still trying to mentor him in the final moments here. Are you going to impress me? Or are you going to do what is necessary? And again, now this is a little divisive, but again, on the whole, it's still a clever solution there. It's whole like, how can Batman, it's a Batman kill, but the most strategic way. I don't view it as a Batman kill. I'm just saying
I don't either.
I don't view it as a kill, but I would say that the argument could be like a debate could be made. Like, did Batman kill Raish by not saving him. I would say no. I think it's pretty as you see. I think it's as you see here. It says, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. And you can interpret a few ways. Of the literal ways that technically Batman might not be able to actually carry him out because he has the glider wings and he can't really carry another person out if he's extending both arms. There's the literal sense of it. I think it's the sense of honestly. I always interpret it as Raish. I mean, he's the highest trained. He's the leader of the League of Shadows. If he gave him an opportunity, and you saw Raish just kind of sit there and he closed his eyes, and if Raish really wanted to, he could run off that train and possibly survive.
Right, right.
I always read it as that. I mean, Raish could have saved himself. Same thing with all those ninjas at the top when the place exploded. They saved themselves. They're highly trained ninjas. They're fine. Oh, this is beautiful here. This little wave.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh my God, it's so heartwarming.
So good, so good.
Yeah. No, but seriously, for anyone who says like, look, you could make an argument that if you're ever gonna do like the smart version of like Batman killed people in his early years, that's the way you do it. If you want to go that route, I would say it's the smartest way we've ever done that. If not, which I'm part of, like let it be, folks. It's just again like we explore the idea further in the next movie, so it's fine. He's built on the idea; it's all fine. Of course, I love that Batman stole Bruce Wayne's press. That was funny. That was a funny idea there.
What the headline is that drunken billionaire burns his house down.
Exactly. And of course, so we get a lot of Arrow, especially season 1 of Arrow. They do play with the Playboy side of things, very inspired by the Bruce Wayne identity. Oliver Queen was a party boy even before he was a superhero, so he had to basically maintain that, and it was always like a pain where he's trying to convince the loved ones that he's changed, but of course he always have to act like this drunken billionaire making a fool out of himself, which just kind of was very counterproductive and caused him a lot of pain. Basically, it was a more earned version of that Rachel scene from earlier on. She made Bruce feel bad about himself. So I love how circular the film is here, where we go back to the beginning with the well. He's sealing up the wells. The first thing he's fixing when he comes back to Wayne Manor, he's sealing up that well, symbolic of he's moving past. Like Bruce Wayne, he essentially, I want to say closure. I don't know if that's necessarily the right word for it here, but Bruce Wayne is moving forward. Obviously, he still has a mission. Obviously, he's still trying to honor his parents. Obviously, he hasn't achieved like the mission or anything, but he's cemented the mission at this point. And he's not afraid of the bats, and that's why he's sealing up that well. He's not afraid, and he's not held back by the past, essentially. That's why he seals that up. And I love that with the train and with Rachel here. I love that by the end of this movie, this is the fascinating thing. I never really put together the full way until I really rewatched it on this viewing, getting ready for this Tiki. Is that it's fascinating that by the end of this movie, Bruce has lost everything. Bruce Wayne has lost everything. Basically, let me rephrase that. Bruce Wayne is only left with Batman at the end of this movie. He's left with Batman, the symbol. He's left with what he's built, as in he's lost the train, he's lost his parents, he's lost Wayne Manor, he's lost, again, any relationship he was going to have with Rachel, which would have been a relationship between Bruce Wayne and Rachel Dawes. The Bruce Wayne side of himself, as Rachel says here, is just a mask, as in Bruce Wayne died with the Waynes, as in he doesn't exist anymore. Now it's just the Batman that I saw. The symbol that you've created is your mission is all that you have left, and that's what you are now. And again, kind of a buzzkill, like I'm going to kiss you, but we can never be together. Rubbing salt in the wound.
Right, it is a buzzkill. Gyllenhaal's probably better written. You're right.
No, but seriously, what do you think of that? T, the whole Batman being all that's left. I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, I think you're on point with it. I like that it kind of plays around with the whole idea that we often see with Superman, is that like, who's the real mask, Superman or Clark Kent? Who's the secret identity?
Oh, and because I completely forgot about it, because again, we have so much things going on here, and of course, again, this is what I'm talking about, the whole loss of like everything he's had. Like again, the symbol of Thomas Wayne is destroyed and in tatters here. Like the stethoscope is all burned and charred. And again, like that's symbolizing again that kid died with the Wayne family essentially. But so I completely forgot about talk about Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne. More specifically, when he was cast, he did the machinist, and he lost like a ton of weight for that role, and he had to put on.
talk about this.
He had
Yeah.
to put on a lot of weight, and I'm saying like he put on too much weight. Actually, he put on 220. He weighed 220 pounds. Once he put on the weight, and then he had to tone that into muscle. So he was really big under that bat suit in this first movie, and he had like these really inspired ideas. Where the reason he got the role, Tiki, was that he did the Kevin Conroy choice, where he differentiated the voices, and he did like the animalistic posing, like you crouch down as Batman and everything. So that's it was all it's all Christian Bale there. So.
Nice.
Okay, now we have to talk about this. And so this is my I got to tell you, one of my live action Batman, at the very least with the Nolan trilogy, maybe in Batman Whole as a film, not counting Phantasm, possibly my favorite moment in any Batman movie ever.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit.
I feel this is the perfect ending. It's year one. Of course, it's the ending of the year one, which is great. But it's here's the thing. It's even better for me. It's even better than year one because it ends with a Batman Gordon scene where Gordon was just alone at the end of year one, but it cemented this idea, and it's I love this conversation. I love the fact that Bruce Wayne had the whole movie. If you look at this just like a one-off Batman movie, Bruce Wayne created a symbol. That's what the whole movie's about, him creating Batman, and the movie ends with Batman beginning. So Batman begins literally at the end of this movie. Again, Batman's all that's left. This world, this mission to save Gotham is all that's left. He's inspired Jim Gordon, as in he has inspired Gotham as a whole, starting with Jim Gordon. It's in every sense of the word, this is Batman as you know him, beginning his crusade. We set up the Joker with the playing card.
The whole idea of the villains are going to mock Batman in a way.
Again, we kind of put in Long Halloween in the play. The idea that once the mob goes, then the supervillains are going to take fray, starting with the Joker with the playing cards. By the way, that playing card is a deep cut reference to Arkham Asylum, A Serious House and a Serious Earth, which has that exact playing card in that book.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean the theme of escalation, we addressed that with one of my favorite Gordon deliveries in the whole trilogy, aside from Storm's Coming. I mean, the Jim Gordon character period is that conversation about escalation. The whole, we buy semi-automatics, they buy automatics. We get armor, they get armor-piercing rounds, and you start wearing a mask and jumping off rooftops. And take this guy for example. Thanks for the theatrical. Like you, I'll look into it. And I'm sorry, I'm just going. I swear to God, the movie's already in. I'm saying it from memory, folks. You got to trust me. But Tiki, seriously, the reason this is my favorite scene all of Batman film, easily, aside just my love of Jim Gordon, is the fact that as Batman as a character, you summarize it with the very end of the movie where I'm sorry, I'm going to my social sense here. I just love Jim Gordon saying, "I never said thank you," and Batman replying to him as he's about to leap off, basically pull a bad exit as he's about to leap off and say, "And you'll never have to."
Yeah, tell me that's not a goddamn perfect.
If I ever need a prolific moment to hinge on Batman as a character, period. That's the line. He's a character. He's gonna swoop in. He's gonna help out. He's gonna save the day. We do this through the Commissioner Gordon character, who again, through what I love about this character is the fact that he's the guy smart enough to work with Batman. He's the guy who's they're working towards the same things, and he's just like they're helping each other out to save the city as the greater whole. And like you never have to thank me. And again, that's not heroism is not about being thanked. It's not about thanking people. And him just like Gordon offering his thanks with Batman not taken, because again, it's our duty to protect Gotham. It's that sort of I love that so much. That's the movie. That's that character to me. And again, knowing what he's doing here, Tegan, as you said so accurately at the very top of this, the movie is, and as it was intended by Nolan here, is that he basically painted a picture, again, not knowing he was going to come back for more. He painted a picture of a Batman movie that, like the best Batman movies, the best Batman stories you could ever conceive will be set up with this ending. As in, this could be like a great one-off Batman movie. Period. So this is what I'm saying with Nolan as a whole here, is that this is a Christopher Nolan movie about Batman. It's like Nolan's take over at that time. I think it was roughly 70 years now. Of course, it's almost 80 years of Batman. What we say about this character. This is what you say about that character in a movie after all these years. Like, this is basically Nolan making a statement on the Batman character as a whole, and this ending just epitomizes all of that, and like all the stuff that he went through to get to this point of the Batman you know and love, and it feels so well earned,
Sure.
Oh my God, so it's perfect ending, my God.
Okay, so final thoughts on my end, folks. This is truly a special movie for me. as I said, it was kind of like my gateway into like independent film and weird artsy kind of films, but in a blockbuster kind of disguise. So I'll never forget that scene, that first viewing where I was just like, this is just captivating me, but it's so different. It's not just the Spider-Man 2, like, lots of cool emotions and lots of visual effects. This is something entirely like on another level. And so, Dragon, I love this movie because of all the horror qualities of it, because of the fact that I do think out of the three of them, it's the most clean plot. I am gonna have some issues with the plot of The Dark Knight that of course we're gonna kind of lead into here. But at the end of the day, I really do think that this is the most concise and most well told of the three Nolan movies with Batman. I do think obviously that The Dark Knight has the mammoth kind of monolithic pop culture milestone that is Heath Ledger's Joker, and I can't wait to talk about that. But I just think rock solid from beginning to the end. This movie just has it's got a perfect pace to it. It's got a perfect structure to it. I really think it's hard to find chinks in the armor. It's like Katie Holmes is a little bit dismissive. That's about it.
Yep.
All right, Dragon, your final thoughts.
So, look, out of all the films in the Dark Knight trilogy, this again, this feels most like a Nolan film. It's a Nolan film on Batman the icon and how you not only adapt that character, but what do you say about the character in premise? And that's it's Nolan saying, what do we basically it's like you give Nolan, okay, Nolan, make a movie about Batman. It's like, okay, just like basically interpreting that character and saying something about that character. And again, in premise of like, a man who dresses up like a bat, what makes a guy dress up like a bat? It's kind of Nolan asking the simple questions and kind of bringing that to life. I mean, the movie's just kind of it's filled with those with elements like that. It's certainly again, there's certainly an argument for for it being the best of the Nolan Batman films. I think I don't know. I don't know necessarily. Again, we'll see once we get the Dark Knight. I think Dark Knight, from what I'm remembering, and we'll see this one upon a further examination. Feels like
my argument is like Dark Knight's the most iconic one, but this is the most solid one on a foundational level.
well, sure, but I mean, like Dark Knight. I think possibly Dark Knight might be the smartest possibly. I think this one is something. It's like something else though. It's something like it's. I think tonally, this one. Again, this one says something about Batman thematically. This is the most thematic movie. It's in the best of ways. I think it's the. I think tonally, and this feels most like Batman. Where I think I don't know. It's hard to say because I'm thinking of stuff in Dark Knight. And we'll hash it out when we get there. I don't know.
Oh yeah, we will.
There. Okay.
We certainly will.
So my point is, with Batman Begins, it's a phenomenal approach to the hero's origin story. It left a mark, an indelible mark, on superhero origin films, possibly the most intellectual intellectual origin film ever made. I'll say that as most. It's the best origin movie ever. Well, sorry, I'm thinking of. It's the most. It's the smartest origin film ever made. It's absolutely the smartest origin film ever made. One of the most well executed origin films ever made. Nolan, he attempted to donner Superman without copying the playbook. So basically, we have another Donner Superman in this Nolan film, which I think is very impressive. I think it's top marks. It helped define the character and captured elements that we've held true of Batman, and we've made them basically everything you held true about Batman. Nolan made it cinematic, and he made it into a piece of cinematic history, which is Batman Begins.
All right. Well, thank you so much for watching, folks. We are just on the first stage of the journey. I, of course, as I've alluded to, I love The Dark Knight. I have a really, really big story about The Dark Knight, the midnight screening that we'll get into. We'll allow myself plenty of time for that. But as I kind of allude to, I don't necessarily think The Dark Knight is a perfect movie. I think I can pick apart more things about The Dark Knight than I can about Batman Begins. That's not to say that The Dark Knight doesn't have higher highs, because I think certainly The Dark Knight has higher highs than Batman Begins. That's not even a question. And once we get to Dark Knight Rises, folks, that's going to be a fun one. Like I said, that's all I can say. That's going to be a fun one. All right, Dragon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you next time.
Storm's coming.
Nice coat.
I never said thank you. You don't have to thank me, and you never have to. Just perfect.
I left the hangout instead of joining the hangout. Silly Tiki. All right, have a good night, folks.